It's 6 o'clock. I call this meeting in Saginaw City Council to order. Please rise for the pledges. Item number 2 is the invocation. I do not see Pastor Mills or anyone from Kingdom Chapel here. Do I have a volunteer to do the invocation? Anyone? 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 All right, I'll do it. Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here together today. Thank you for helping us do the good work of this great, wonderful city that we call home. Bless us with all your wisdom. We need it. We could appreciate some rain, too, just asking. So please thank you so much for everything you give us and all our blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Item number 3 is audience participation. So the rule is, if you want to speak on an issue that is posted on the agenda, see Janice, fill out one of these forms. She will let you speak. Unless it says public hearing. If it's a public hearing, you don't have to do that. When I call for folks at the public hearing, you can come up here and take your turn and give you 3 minutes and go for it. So we invite people to be involved. All right, thank you, guys. Item 4 is the consent agenda. I've had a request to pull item C and D. So Charles and David. So item A, action regarding minutes of August 2nd. B, action regarding appointment of Crime Control and Prevention District Board of Directors. E, action regarding Capital Improvements Advisory Committee recommendations. Any questions on A, B, or E? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve A, B, and E.
Charlie, second. Well, let us vote. Most passed. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. We have a full house this evening. Thank you all for coming. All right, so item C, action regarding agreement with P3 Works LLC for tax reinvestment zone. For that, City Manager Gabe Brangham.
Mayor and Council, we have an agreement for administration of tax reinvestment zone number 1, TERS 1. So a TERS is a financing mechanism where qualifying taxpaying entities contribute money into a fund that is dedicated for future public improvements, specifically within the boundaries of the TERS. So you'll recall this is the first TERS in the city. We're in the first year of that TERS. So the city is participating at 50%, along with Tarrant County College and the Tarrant County. So 50% of the future tax value will go into a fund that we use for public improvements. And Kyle Sikorsky with P3 is here, so if you have specific questions, I'll defer to him.
Any questions? Cindy?
Sure. It's been a while since we talked about this, but my understanding that this was not going to be a tax burden or a financial burden on the citizens, but I see in this document that we have to pay for administrative costs. But and I'm trying to remember now if I'm, because this also relates to the next one, D as well. Is this the one that doesn't have any? I guess not. I think it's the PID that. But anyway, it looks like we're going to be contributing a considerable amount of money to this, just based on the hourly rates for the different administration roles.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. Mayor, Council, Kyle Sikorsky, P3 Works. We have served as the city's TERS and PID consultant in the past. The items before you tonight, as Gabe pointed to, are the administration contracts. Since we've created, we're kind of moving into the next phase of administration. In regards to the TERS, there are administrative fees. However, those are not paid for out of the general fund. They will only ever be paid for through the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Fund. So the administrative services will be paid from contributions to that fund, not just from the city, but also from the county and the college contribution as well. We charge an hourly rate for the administration of the TERS specifically. In reality, because there are actually not a lot of administrative responsibilities when it comes to a TERS. There's an annual report that is required to be filed to the state comptroller. That's about a 2 or 3 page form. It's relatively simple to fill out. So in years where we're not assisting in any negotiations or amendments to plans, we only will spend a few hours a year, and so we don't want to charge the city $10,000 for only a few hours worth of work. Now, the flip side of that is if we do have amendments to the plan in the future, or if the city asks for any assistance in negotiations, then we do have more fees, and we would collect them through that hourly rate. But on average, and what we include in our modeling, we typically see between $5,000 to $10,000 a year if you average it out in administrative services. You're going to have lots of years where that's only going to be a couple $100 or $1,000, and you have other years where it might be a little bit higher. But also, if there's insufficient funds in that TERS fund, we would defer the collection of those administrative expenses. We would never request that the city pay for those fees out of the general fund. So it'll all continue to come through the TERS fund.
Do we have any money in the TERS right now?
This 2022-23 will be the first year that we contribute to the TERS. There's the incremental value, about $1.3 million, I think that I had estimated, that will be that our tax rate will be applied to. So the city will contribute, the county will contribute, and the school district will contribute. This is the first year we've done it, but I think we collected in February, I think is when we do that.
Okay.
In regards to your second question, when you brought up there was no burden to the taxpayer, that is tied closer to the public improvement district. That part of the administrative contract, the administrative expenses for the PID come through the annual installments that are collected by the property owners within the development. And so there are no city dollars paying for the administration of the PID in any manner. That, like I said, that's all paid for through the property owners, and it has no effect on anyone outside of the public improvement district.
Sorry, since we're migrating over to that topic anyway, from what I've read, I mean, there's no development, nothing's completed, so I'm guessing there's not much in the PID as well. So, are you just going to delay the billing on those?
So with the public improvement district, there is a much heavier administrative burden whether or not there is development there or not. Chapter 372 is the local government code which controls PIDs. It requires that there is an annual service plan update that is prepared, that is part of your agenda tonight to consider that ordinance. On top of that, we work with the developer as they're building. They will be submitting draw requests to us. Since we're dealing with public dollars, we do a very detailed and thorough review of invoices that they're submitting, making sure they have their invoice, cancel check, lien releases, all bills paid affidavits, making sure all the numbers tick and tie, and we go through that whole process, provide it to the city to assist in that review, and then also I know we've already sold one of the properties off to multifamily. We continue to work with the developer in making sure that any property owner that's purchasing within the development is being properly disclosed. We have a website that we maintain, keeping a searchable database and uploading all of the relative documents. And then as we get further down the line as well, as you have potential residents coming in and they have questions about the PID, we kind of become the face of the city from the PID perspective to answer those questions. So all that being said, the majority of that is all captured under that yearly administration fee that we charge. And so there is a much heavier administrative burden. So we still collect the full administrative expenses with the annual installment from the very first year.
Okay, so again, are we paying out of our city monies for this?
We collected PID assessments in this current year, and we've been paying for their administrative fees out of the PID fund.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for C and D for Kyle?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. If not, I'll entertain a motion on C and D. Yeah,
Mayor, I move that we approve both C and B.
D.
C and D.
D
C.
and dog.
Dog, I'm sorry. C and dog.
Cat,
C and D.
cat and dog. Is there a second? Mary, second. Let's vote. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle. Item 5, speaking of cats. Item 5, presentation regarding managing community cats. Jose, what's up, buddy? Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for inviting us up here today to talk about the feral cat program. And while Keith's getting that taken care of, I'm going to get my eyeballs out. So we've been tasked with doing some research on a TNR program. Both Kelly Henderson and myself have done a lot of research on this, including one of our shelter techs that's no longer with the city due to moving back up to Michigan. So we've put a little presentation together today for you to listen to what we've found so far. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I've also brought Joe Stout and Misty Schoolcraft. They're cat advocates. Joe is with Mid-Cities Community Cats, and Misty is with Panther City Cat Coalition. So if there's any questions you have about the TNR that I can't answer, hopefully they'll be able to answer for you. So the first question would be, what is a feral cat? So a feral cat is a cat that's untamed and was born in the wild. Feral cats live outdoors and do not appear friendly when approached. They can multiply quickly. Feral cats, or cats period, at the age of about 4 months old, are able to have a litter of kittens. Okay, they can have at least 2 to 3 kittens a year. Once the kittens are weaned, the female cat is able to have another litter of kittens. So they multiply quickly. Trap, neuter, return program. It's actually called Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, and Return, as I learned yesterday. It's a variant of and it's a non-lethal strategy intended to reduce the number of community cats, improve the health and safety of cats, and reduce impacts on wildlife. Community cats are spayed or neutered so that they can no longer reproduce. They're vaccinated against rabies. They're marked to identify them as sterilized and returned to their home territory. Usually when they mark the cats, meaning that they're sterilized, they will tip the left ear. So that way we can know if we ever pick one up in a trap that it's already been through a trap neuter program. So a little bit about it. Traps are lent out. Community cats are captured with humane live traps. We do not issue any traps through the city that are kill traps. So all our traps that we issue to the public are live release traps. The animals are neutered. In this case, we will take the animals to Texas Coalition for Animal Protection. They usually do about 12 free cats a day. If we wind up having to pay for these, later in the presentation, the cost will be in there in the slide. Their ear is tipped, or the top portion of their left ear is tipped, preventing the cat from needlessly being readmitted into the TNR program. Cats are returned after they recover from surgery, usually 24 hours for male cats and 48 hours for female cats. So most of the cats in our communities, cats are a popular pet in the United States. Studies show between 25 and 34% of households own cats, with an average of 1.8 cats per home. That's a total of 58 to 76 million cats. The majority, approximately 87% of owned cats, have been spayed or neutered. If the council's not aware, we do allow 3 cats and 2 dogs, or 3 dogs and 2 cats in our city ordinance currently. Approximately 68.
How many was that? 3 dogs?
You're allowed 3 dogs and 2 cats, or 3 cats and 2 dogs.
Okay.
for a total of 5, but it has to be a combination of both.
And would you explain what you mean by own?
Owned?
Yeah. I mean, if you're feeding cats,
So our
you own
definition
them?
of owned or harboring, so in our city ordinance, it states that if you harbor an animal for more than 72 hours, that animal becomes your pet, which means if you provide it food, water, shelter, veterinary care, a place to live, it's considered harboring.
So if there's cats roaming around my yard and I get them fixed, or if I put food out for them, then I'm harboring them, then that means that goes against this 3-cat policy.
Correct.
On the feral cats, though?
If
Feral
you are
cats are
feeding,
wildlife.
currently in our ordinance, which we would have to change our ordinance if this were to go forward, if you harbor an animal per ordinance, you feed, water, provide it veterinary care, and a place to live for more than 72 hours, that animal becomes your pet.
If I can mention, feral cats, by the national organizations that promote TNR are usually considered unowned cats. They usually distinguish that a feral cat in a colony is considered an unowned cat. So as Jose said, that might be something that would need to be adjusted in your ordinance.
Okay. Because I have them, they're all fixed. But I'm not going to let them die, so they put food out for them. Sorry, I'm not. Yeah.
So approximately 68% of owned cats are kept indoors, with the number increasing to 72% are kept indoors at night. The population of free-roaming owned cats needs to be addressed while managing unowned community cats, particularly if the cat's allowed to wander or not spayed or neutered. Community cat populations generally consist of a mixture of feral cats, semi-socialized cats, and lost and abandoned pets. Community cats are found in all areas of the country. No one knows how many cats live in the United States, but estimates are in tens of millions. It's important to remember that these cats are already living in our community. Their origins may be varied. Some may have once been owned cats, while others may be offsprings or generations of feral cats. We do receive complaints about people moving and leaving their cats at their house. For instance, we just did a case in Blue Mound on June 14th where a gentleman moved and we took in 28 cats out of his house. TNR is about controlling and reducing the population of unowned, strayed, and feral cats. It is not about allowing more cats to live in our communities. So what doesn't work? Trap and remove, the lethal control. So trap and remove is an old school approach to community cat control but does not work. New cats move into an area and soon through the vacuum effect and cat population, the cat population soon grows larger and larger than it was before. Neutered cats are territorial and will keep any newcomers away. The benefits to doing TNR. A community-wide TNR program are effective because they halt reproduction, they lead to the reduction and eventual elimination of outdoor cat populations through attrition, vaccinating cats against rabies and other diseases depending on available resources, decrease the nuisance complaints by eliminating mating behaviors, fighting, spraying, and marking territories. They ease the burden on the community resources such as animal shelters flooded with cats and their offspring, reducing the need for shelter personnel to kill healthy animals. If anybody's been to animal services in the last couple of months, you know that we are completely packed with cats. It brings new financial resources and volunteer workforces into the community. It can improve community and neighborhood relations and lead to new collaborations. It also allows private nonprofit organizations that help community cats and volunteers to mediate conflicts between the cats and residents of surrounding communities, and it maintains the health of community cats and allowing caretakers to trap new cats who join the colony for TNR, reunification with their owner, or rehoming. So while some while some residents might complain about cats in their backyard or cats adversely affecting their property, many of these complaints can be resolved with the information about humane deterrence and civil dialogue with neighbors. Animal control officers can be an integral part of this approach. So anytime we do receive complaints from citizens about cats, if we can find out who owns the cat, we usually go over and talk to the person if we can make contact with them. If we can't, we leave notices of violations on their door asking them to contact us about a complaint. In our ordinance, A cat that becomes a nuisance is considered at large, so they fall under the at large portion of our ordinance. So public support volunteerism is vital to large-scale sterilization programs. When confronted with facts, most residents will choose sterilization for cats in their area versus trapping and euthanizing healthy cats. What doesn't work? Feeding bans. The logic behind banning the feeding of outdoor cats is that if no one feeds them, they will go away. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. However, cats are strongly bonded to their home territories and will not easily or quickly leave familiar surroundings to search for new food sources. Instead, they tend to move closer to homes and businesses as they grow hungrier, leading to more nuisance complaint calls, greater public concern for cats' welfare, and underground feedings. Feeding bans are ineffective and are difficult, if not impossible, to enforce.
So you said they move closer to homes. To me, you're implying that these are wild animals. Let's make it perfectly clear. These are not native species. These are an invasive species. So we need to get that right here. Yep, they are. Yeah. They are not native to Texas. They're not native to the U.S. These cats are feral cats. They're an invasive species. So we can agree to disagree, but that's the way it is. I talked to the experts.
Hold on. Let's,
Hold on a minute.
Let's go through Jose on this. Jose has the floor, so.
But, I mean, these cats run in our neighborhoods, around us, around our things. They're not coming in from out like a wild. They're not like a fox. They're not like a bobcat, where they're a naturally wild animal. That's why they're
So a
called
majority
feral.
of the cats that we deal with on a daily basis
Yeah.
are either owned pets
Yeah.
or they were owned pets. The owner decided to leave and left them outside
Yeah,
and sterilized.
So I absolutely 100% agree
So-
with that. To me, they're the same as a feral hog. Hogs are a feral animal. They're not native to Texas. They're an invasive species. And there'll be people here that disagrees with me, but that's the truth.
So feeding bans limit residents' personal freedom and equate to punishment for compassion. The question rises about liability. The tort trial and insurance section of the American Bar Association supports the adoption of TNR programs by local governments. Conducting or allowing TNR programs in order to reduce cat populations, protect public health, and mitigate nuisance complaints is a legitimate government purpose. Thus, the municipality should not be held liable for third-party claims, also known as government immunity. Now we have a question about the rabies risk. Ultimately, our goal is to have all animals vaccinated inside our city limits, whether they're feral cats, owned cats, wild dogs, okay, or owned dogs. Vaccinating community cats against rabies is an opportunity to protect public health. The number of rabies-related human deaths in the United States has declined from more than 100 annually to the turn of the century to 1 or 2 per year in the 1990s. So Texas currently has 5 top carriers of rabies. Those 5 top carriers are skunks, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, and bats. While I was going through this, I did some little research through Texas Department of State Health Services website. And in Tarrant County alone in 2001, from January 1st, 2001 to January 2021 to November 2021, state of Texas tested 132 cats in Tarrant County for rabies. Out of those 132 cats were negative for rabies. There was 194 dogs tested, 194 came back negative. 19 skunks were tested, 8 positive, 11 negative. 5 foxes were tested. Out of those, 3 came back negative. 24 bats were tested, 23 came back negative. Coyotes, we've had 4 tested in Tarrant County. They came back negative. 23 raccoons were tested, 23 came back negative. Others, they tested 5 and 5 came back positive. It did not say what those 5 animals were or species were. But in Saginaw, we have skunks, foxes, bats, coyotes, and raccoons. Okay? We do have the 5 top carriers in our city. Then the question came about of toxoplasmosis. So most cases of toxoplasmosis stem from undercooked food, not cats. Catch kill advocates argue that feral cats transmit toxoplasmosis, a parasitic disease that spreads via toxoplasma. I want to butcher this one. Oocysts shed in the feces of an infected animal, but studies show that overwhelming majority of the toxoplasmosis cases actually result from eating undercooked meat. According to CDC statistics, toxoplasmosis is the 3rd leading cause of foodborne illness-related deaths in the United States. Pregnant women and their fetuses face a higher risk from the disease, but a study published by Archives of Internal Medicine in 2002 concluded that pregnant women were unlikely to catch toxoplasmosis from a cat. And it was found that it's rare for anyone to catch toxoplasmosis from a household pet.
So, sorry, I have to stop you there. The key word there is household cat. And I did read several studies from this also. And it is very unlikely, from what they say, for you to catch this disease from a household cat. But if you are going to catch it from a cat, it is significantly greater if you're working in your garden or in your flower beds to catch it from a stray cat, because they have more chance of eating defected meat. That's usually where they get that from my understanding, or other stray cats, in which would be in their colony.
And if I remember correctly, that spread through either contaminated litter or contaminated feces, correct?
They said it was there was some contaminated meat, and it could be contaminated where they interacted with the other animal. It could be feces, however they.
But in order
these
for
animals interact.
the person to come in contact with toxoplasmosis, a cat would have to eat the contaminated meat.
Mm-hmm.
Then the cat contracts it, and then the person has to deal with the feces from that cat.
That's right. And so the
Okay.
chances of an indoor cat coming into contact is very nil, but the chances of an outdoor stray cat and then it using your flower bed as a cat litter box is a lot greater. I ain't saying that it's significant. I'm just saying that that these feral cats do have a lot higher risk than household cats. Household cats, they say, are almost nil. But they still recommend pregnant women or women who's thinking about getting pregnant not to change cat litter boxes.
So we have what's called a vacuum effect. If you're not familiar with the vacuum effect, the initial population lives in a location because of resources such as shelter, food, and water. Once emptied, this still resource-rich habitat, the vacuum inevitably attracts other members of the same species from neighboring areas. With reproduction from unneutered animals, the areas fill back up to capacity again. The vacuum effect also occurs across many species, including foxes, mice, coyotes, voles, possums, badgers, and cats. The next slide shows you how the vacuum effect actually works. Colony of cats is trapped, taken to the animal shelter. Some of them are likely killed. Colony size expands again, and new cats join the colony. Okay, and they will actually breed until they either fill up that colony or reproduce more animals. With the trap neuter return program, cats are picked up in a trap, they're taken to a veterinarian, neutered, ear-tipped, vaccinated, and returned to the area where they were picked up at.
So help me understand. If you have cats, feral cats living in an area, they're going to defend that property and not let new cats in.
Correct.
But they have to be neutered to do that?
No. The neuter and sterilization of the animals helps overpopulation.
Right.
Okay?
But if you still have a few cats there, shouldn't they keep the new cats from joining the colony?
If the cats are neutered and the girls are sterilized, why would a boy cat come if there's nothing there for him to accomplish?
The
And
parts
the
are
male's
still
not
there.
going to come and fight the other males.
The parts are still there.
Yeah. Do what?
The parts are still
I
there.
don't think animals work like that, but okay.
So we'll answer. Once I'm done with the presentation, they can answer how that works. So currently, the cost from Texas Coalition for Animal Protection, spay and neuters 12 cats for free most days. Okay, on average, our ACOs try to get over there as early as we can, so that way we can get as many cats in as we can for free. If we can't, for animals that are caught in traps, the average fee for a spay or neuter is $20 plus $5 for the rabies vaccine, and the ferals get an ear tip. Okay. Now, that cost isn't set in stone. If the cat goes in, it's a female, and it's pregnant or in heat, there's an additional cost for that. Okay. If it's a male cat and they go in and they find that it's a crypt orchid, which means one of the testicles hasn't descended, that's an extra charge. So a regular price for sterilization for a male cat is $35 with TCAP, $45 with females, plus $5 for rabies shots, and also the additional costs if they come in pregnant or in heat.
What if they have other diseases? Are those also taken care of at that time?
If Texas Coalition finds that they have a disease, they'll contact us. If it's something that they can fix, they'll tell us what the cost for that is, and then we'll tell them to go ahead and vaccinate or whatever they need to do to fix it. If it's not something, then we'll go pick the animal up and we'll actually take them to the veterinarian over, say, BCA or one of the vets that we work with, and see if we can get them treated that way. If it's a life-threatening, like panleukopenia or something like that, then the animal's euthanized.
Okay.
I read this and I replied back with a bunch of questions. And the one thing that I did that I didn't get an answer for is, okay, you catch a cat, and to me there's, in my mind, there should be three outcomes. One, you spade it, neuter it, take care of it, whatever it needs to get. But it's not a candidate to be adopted out, but yet it's still healthy and it shouldn't be euthanized due to its health or disease. The other one is you get a cat and it's beyond having a acceptable life. So therefore, and I'm assuming the veterinarian would decide that. I'm just making that assumption that the animal's health and its well-being would be not to release it. And then the other one would be that it's a younger cat, it's healthy, we neuter it, spade it, and then release it. But I don't see anything in here in your paperwork about we actually go through that. It almost, and I'm having to read into this because it almost was like we get them, we neuter them, we spade them, we release them. And I don't like that.
So when an animal comes into our facility now,
Right.
whether it be a dog or a cat,
Mm-hmm.
that animal's held for 72 hours for us to evaluate its temperament.
Mm-hmm.
If it's adoptable, we get it vaccinated, we get it sterilized. We do heartworm tests on it to find out if it's positive or negative. If it's positive, we have a donation account set up to where we can take down there to low-cost treatment and get them heartworm treatment started.
Right.
Or we ask for donations, and people usually donate for that kind of medical supplies, and we take them down there and have the stuff done. If they're evaluated and they're found that they're not adoptable and they need special work, then we contact rescue groups. And rescue groups usually step in when they're not full and say, yeah, we got people that can work with that. We'll take that temperament, and they'll come pick the animal up and it's placed in their rescue group. With cats, if we can't find a rescue group for them, and currently they're not available for adoption, we have a barn cat program that we reach out to, and they place the cats in the barn cat program. Or we wait until we find a rescue group that will take the cat.
So you all get in 4.6 cats per week, and you adopt out, some means 2.25 cats per week, I think is what it is. I think that's the
Currently,
number you all gave me.
That's what the numbers that we did from October 1st till present.
Yeah, but I also know that we spend a significant amount of the days where we don't even accept cats. We got so many we can't take them.
Correct.
And so that provides a burden upon our citizens of having to deal with these cats that they're having a problem with, or I don't know if dogs are the same way. But my thing is, if we have this barnyard thing, why don't we just move them all to the barnyard? Why are we
There's not
able to
enough
move
barn
through?
cat rescues in the area that are
sorry?
There's not enough barn cat rescues in the area that are accepting cats right now.
Okay, gotcha.
Not to mention all the animal rescue groups that we deal with currently are all full.
Okay.
So what do we
If we get a
do?
bunch more neutered and everything, we're not going to keep having kittens that can be out in the wild.
Yeah, and I asked that question in the thing, because I went back and I actually called a couple cities in Florida on this that's been doing this for 20-some years, and they still got a significant feral cat population. So I did research a non-kept cat, and you just let it run its course. The life expectancy is about 2 years. If we take care of the cat, these cat colonies, it's about 10 years. And that's just data that I looked up, so there's a difference. So in my simplest mind, I'm like, well, then if we do this and no other cats are coming in 10 years, I no longer got any feral cats. And what I got told, oh, no, the colony levels out and it keeps about that same. So it ain't as if it's going to be a steady decline. We'll drop down, the colony will stay about this size, and we'll feed it and stuff. So we'll continue to have cat colonies and these cat issues.
Okay, but the cat colony, once you get them all fixed and neutered, you're not going to have any more kittens. So as they get older, they're going to die off. They're not going to replenish themselves. It doesn't work like that.
Well,
Okay, it hasn't
that's
worked
what
like
I
that with
thought.
mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would thought until I asked the questions. When I got asked, but no. Because
But I can tell you this much. In 32 years, I haven't had one mouse, and I've saved a bunch of money on exterminators, so I'm good with
I
it.
understand that.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it is. It never talks when I want to talk. Okay.
And talking about mice too, and this is through the Texas Fish and Wildlife Department. They have directly related, and you can go look this up through the Texas. 33 species that's been what do you want to call it? What do you call that one? Extinct. Do trace back to feral cats. And I got a number in here somewhere. It's in the billions of the Audubon Society gave of birds that cats kill, and it's about the same. And that's not in Texas. That's just in the United States. And it's
See,
the
once
same
again,
number.
Can
population
I
control.
shed
It's,
some light on that subject, there, Mr. Lawson?
3.7 billion cats and over 6.9 billion mammals annually. But there has been in Texas 33 species, according to the Texas Fish and Wildlife Department, traced back to extinct due to feral cats.
Population control.
Get us back on track, Jose.
Yes, sir. Those 33 extinct animal or species are not in the state of Texas. They're actually on islands. Okay. I've also reached out to the gentleman that put out the
Yeah, they put out
information from Texas Parks and Wildlife,
Yeah.
and they also back TNR programs, even though that information is wrong. So cost for ACOs transporting animals to the vet and the pickup estimated, you're looking at about 1 to 1.5 hours depending on construction traffic. That's both in the morning and afternoon. So we're looking at $54 a day times 3 days. So we're looking at about $162. Take that and multiply that by 52 weeks in the year. We're looking at $8,242.
And that
For
does not
tri-
include the cost of gas,
That does not include the cost of gas, no.
which is going up.
Correct.
So 3 days a week is what we think would have that many cats? We need to do 3 days a week?
We're probably not going to have to do 3 days a week, but that's what I'm just estimating right now.
Okay.
We don't just go over 2 TCAP for cats. We also take dogs with us. So
Okay.
4 trips equals about 30 miles a day. So times 3 days, that's 90 miles a week. So in a year, we'll put 4,680 miles on the truck.
So just so I get the numbers right, so you're saying that we can introduce this as part of our animal control for a total of $8,000 a year, period.
That's not including the 40,000 that we would have the shed fixed up.
That's a one-time cost. The 40,000
Correct.
would be a one-time cost. So you're saying total cost, recurring cost is 8,000. Huh?
The sterilization, if they're not one of the 12 free for that day, we would have to pay the cost.
And the city of Weatherford, the first year they did this program, did 717 cats.
We did?
No, City of Weatherford.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh.
And this,
17 cats, that was their feral cat problem, that you start degrading over a period of time.
I got the you got a one-time cost, so we got $40,000 to just get it off the ground. Now I'm looking for what's the reoccurring cost. And when reoccurring, that's everything. Gas, in here you got that it'll take 2.5 people to run it. That's their cost.
With what we're doing now, yes.
Yeah.
With what we have now. There are associations that we could get grants to help out with this stuff.
Yeah.
Between Best Friends, Alley Cats, they do grants to help and assist cities that do the TNR programs to help fund some of it.
That's where I'm. The dollar amount. I mean, it's got to be laid out. Exactly. I mean, if it takes 2.5 people to run it, which, again, I talked to a couple of places down in Florida, and it looks like for a city our size, that's about what it takes to actually run it and run it to where we would want it to be efficient. Unless you could, maybe you could get volunteers. I don't know, but I know.
So we do currently have a volunteer program that assists with some of the cleaning and stuff like that to help out with our staff.
Yeah.
But those 2.5 people that we take away from to put towards the TNR program, we're going to take away from actually cleaning the shelter.
That's what I'm saying. So it'd be 2.5 extra people.
Correct.
To run this. So their cost has to be calculated in.
Unless we can get volunteers to step in and help out.
Right.
And then just for the mileage on the vehicle, the IRS mileage reimbursement is 62.5 cents, so that's another $3,000. And that includes your gas and maintenance on a vehicle. And that's just an individual level. I don't know if there's a difference for a city level. So that's an additional.
Worst case scenario, we can get volunteers to cover this 2.5 people. What would that cost me? 130, 140,000.
They only reimburse half of that for mileage. So 501c3, our reps, it's a different.
Roughly. 140K.
All right, so housing at the shelter. Animal Services is currently equipped with 16 cat cages, 10 cat cages in the adoption area, 6 cat cages in quarantine. Feral cats would be required to be housed separate from our adoptable cats to prevent the spread of disease. Also, once surgery is completed, it's suggested to hold a male cat 1 day and females 2 days after surgery.
And how many animals do you anticipate holding in that new shed that you want to remodel?
Once surgery is completed, 24 hours for males and 48 hours, a minimum of 48 hours.
No, not how long, how many animals, how many cats and dogs do you plan
That would
to?
depend on what type of cages we have to put in there. That shed that we have currently does not have any cages in there.
I know, but you're going to remodel it. You're going to spend $40,000 on that. You don't have an idea of how many cages you plan to put in there for cats and dogs?
Not right now, currently. We'd have to go, depending on the size of the shed, once it's done. We'd have to have plumbing added to it, electricity added to it. We have to have heating and air added to it.
Is that an additional cost over and above the $40,000?
No, ma'am, that's all included in that cost.
I guess I'm struggling here. I know that there's some experts going to talk, and maybe they can walk us through starting one of these up. But I would think that we could use historical data from others to figure out about how many cats we can expect of a city of 7 square miles. How many of these feral cats we can expect to be running through our system and see. And I mean that to me, I'm data driven.
The further we get along in this, that information will be handed to you, sir. So Animal Services currently has a storage shed next to dog quarantine that could be converted into a TNR holding area. The items needed are going to be electricity. We had bids collected in February to see exactly how much it would cost to have this stuff taken care of. This shed was actually purchased back before COVID hit. So it's been sitting there as a storage building since COVID. So we would have to have electricity added to the building, including heat and air. That's an estimated cost of $4,400. Water to the building, an estimated cost of $1,800. Finishing the building on the inside so that it can be disinfected, estimated cost of work, $7,884.65. That was as of February 8th. With the cost of the materials and everything going up, that price has probably increased since then. Cat cages estimated cost, you're looking at $3,912, which is the cat cages we use currently at the shelter, and they can go all the way up to $7,000, and that's for an actual bank.
Yeah,
which
that's
is-
what I was aiming to ask you, because I read that and I couldn't figure out, I was like, holy cow, $7,000 for a cage? Is this a bank? How many's in a
That's
bank?
a bank.
Cage?
It
Is that
depends on
10?
which size we purchase. You can have anywhere between 8 cages, 4 on top, 4 on the bottom, or you can get them bigger than that.
What does the experts recommend?
Yeah, how many cages do we need?
I can tell you that at C5 in Las Vegas, what they do is they just have the cats in the traps and stick them on tables in a garage. And C5 is an amazing organization. They do all the TNR. They take them in for the other items, go to different areas. But for simply having the cats, we just need to shed plastic tables, keep them in their traps, take them in, get them figured, put them back on the table.
So when we take the cats to TCAP, they're required to be placed in a trap. Okay?
I'm sorry?
When we pick the cats up and take them to TCAP, they have to be in a trap in order for them to do the surgery.
Okay.
Okay? Now, we're not going to leave a cat in a trap overnight. Okay? If we place them in a cage, we have cages with feral cat boxes in them. We'll put blankets in the feral cat box. The cats tend to go in there and stay in that box. There's lids that we can put over the front of them to keep them closed and isolated, and they can transfer them from that box back into the trap so they can go to the vet the next morning.
I'm just curious, why don't we leave them in the traps? The traps are humane, I mean, right? And I'm asking because I don't know.
Okay, well,
Cleaning? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I guess it would be a mess. I wouldn't want to stick my hand
I
in
wouldn't
there.
want to stay in a trap where I'm urinating and defecating on
Right,
myself.
Gotcha, yeah. Appreciate it.
So
Equipment,
Are we looking at that 40,000 going up just because of construction costs
yes,
and
ma'am.
materials?
These quotes were done back in February of, I believe it was this year.
They were updated. February this year was the first one.
So we currently have 8 to 9 cat traps that we actually loan out to the public. Traps are loaned out for 7 business days to assist in capturing nuisance animals such as cats or wild animals. Citizens are responsible for the traps while they're in their possession. If the trap is lost, stolen, or damaged, replacement cost is $75 per our ordinance. When I was putting this together, I actually looked at the traps that we use, and the price has gone up to $104.99. We currently use animal control vehicles to transport animals to the vet. Animal Services has 3 ACO trucks. When transporting animals, it takes 1 vehicle out of service for at least 2 hours a trip, depending on traffic. So 2 trips at 2 hours a day. On the high end, you're looking at 4 hours a day that 1 staff member and 1 vehicle is out of service.
Do we recruit volunteers for that task?
Not at this time.
Is it in your plan?
Volunteers will not be driving city vehicles.
Not city vehicles, their own personal vehicles.
We do not currently have any volunteers that are going to TCAP to pick up animals, no.
Okay.
In the future, if we can get volunteers that want to help out with the TNR program, pretty sure we can find people to help us out transporting animals. Feral cat boxes are needed to safely move cats for cleaning and transporting throughout the shelter. Animal Services currently has 7 of those boxes. The cost for feral cat boxes is $89.95. Yes, ma'am. We currently have 7, so if we do this program, we'll probably have to add more of those feral cat boxes. To start out, probably 4 or 5. Animal Services currently has the following staff members. We have 1 Animal Services Manager, which is also an ACO. We have 1 Adoption Rescue Coordinator, who is ACO certified, 2 full-time ACOs, 1 full-time shelter technician, and 2 part-time shelter technicians. Doing the TNR program will require more staff as the current number of staff is overworked with the current job duties. Reminder, the city keeps growing, and we have only added 1 part-time shelter technician. With the amount of calls we receive daily for stray cat issues, we'd possibly need at least 1 or more full-time shelter technician. one administrative position, and possibly one part-time shelter tech, as we are adding another building with the animals to care for and clean. Animal Control currently has 54. We adopted one out today. 54 animals in our care. And we currently have 3 buildings that they're having to maintain. So what does work? Trap, neuter, return stabilizes feral cat colonies. Colonies that are involved in TNR diminish in size over time. During an 11-year study of a TNR at the University of Florida, the number of cats on campus declined by 66%, with no new kittens being born after the first 4 years of operation. Trap, neuter, return quickly stabilizes feral cat populations by instantly ending reproduction and removing socialized cats from the colony. TNR program at Texas A&M University neutered 123 cats in its first year and found no new litters of kittens the following year. So that is my presentation for Animal Services. If y'all have any questions about TNR, I'm sure Mr. Stout or Ms. Schoolcraft will be able to answer those for you.
So,
I got a question. Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to do TNR? I mean, after all I've heard, why wouldn't we want to do TNR?
You know, when I first started with Animal Control, back in 2004, we were operating out of the back shelter, which is now our quarantine facility. Mm-hmm. We held cats and dogs 72 hours and euthanized because we didn't have the space.
Sure.
We now have 33 dog kennels and 16 cat cages. This city is growing substantially. Mm-hmm. Okay.
To say nothing, we're taking on the responsibility for Blue Mound as well.
Believe it or not, the number of Blue Mound animals that we pick up is significantly less than what we pick up here in Saginaw, other than the 28 cats.
That'll do it.
But it's still,
It's something.
it's something.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's something, but it doesn't impact us as much as the animals in our city. Okay?
So I do have one question. Do we need to change that ordinance on the feral cats? Because I don't want to get in trouble.
There's a lot of changes we need to do in our ordinance right now, and I'm currently working on that.
Okay.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah.
so, and my question was never answered when I sent it, is I'm a person and I'm not too far away from one of these cat colonies, and these cats are causing me problems. I call you all. I go get one of the traps. I trap the cat. It's already got its ear clipped. I think it's the left ear, ain't it?
Yes,
left
sir.
Ear clipped. What do y'all do with it? Do you just turn it back loose?
Yes, sir. At this point, yes.
So in other words, I have to suck it up and put up with this cat who's destroying or damaging my property.
Are you sure it's a cat?
Or whatever I catch in it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I work in my garden. I get cat poop all the time. I have to wear gloves. I have to wear shoes. You know, I don't like.
Can you request, in the policy, can we request that if there's cats that's bothering us and it's in my area, that we move it over to somebody's area?
They won't colonize. They won't recolonize.
Take it to Valerie. I guess she likes them.
Yeah. But they won't recolonize. That's what I'm saying. Since all mine are neutered, this is no lie.
So-
I have one little cat that
I
somebody
got a question
bumped
for
out
you,
or
Jose.
something.
Wait, hold on. We got multiple conversations. Hold on.
I have a question for you. We currently require our residents to register their dogs.
Cats are required to be registered also.
Cats are registered too.
That's dogs
And they have to have a rabies
cats
shot.
So
are
it
required
is,
to be
we do,
registered.
so if we pick up cats, or if you pick up cats and you take them back, say for example, to my house, shouldn't I have to register those cats?
If it's an unowned trap and neuter cat, if we change our ordinances, trap and neuter return cats will not have to be registered.
But we're feeding
Now-
them. I think we should.
But you're feeding the community, it could be, no.
Don't bother me.
I got 9 of them around my house, and I don't want any of them. I don't get me wrong. I love cats. I love animals.
You have to do rabies shots every year to register.
Currently in our ordinance, all dogs and cats over the age of 3 months old are required to be vaccinated for rabies and registered. Okay?
But now you're putting the burden on the citizens.
If an animal is picked up and it's wearing a tag or a microchip, just like if it was a dog, if we can notify the owner that we have their animal, they're giving a warning the first time, or depending on the situation, a citation.
but you're putting a tax burden on our citizens. I mean, the
In a
startup
perfect
charges.
world, sorry, ma'am. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to do this. We'd have responsible pet owners. All animals would be vaccinated.
There you go.
All animals would be inside their house. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect world, and we do have irresponsible pet owners.
Okay,
I
but we,
absolutely agree with you there that this is a problem that the citizens creates. Again,
but I think
So I'm
we
gonna-
have the 501c3 now. We've also have the donations through the water bill. I think those monies should fund this project. It should not come out of it should not be included in our budget.
We do have grant opportunities to get grants to assist with this. Kelly Henderson is also the grant writer for the city or for the Animal Services Department, and he will be starting to look into grants through both Alley Cats and Best Friends.
But
So
again,
if we can get a grant to assist with some of this, by all means, we'll try and get it.
but I got 9 cats in my yard, and I do not want them there.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have room for 9 cats currently in my shelter because of the situation we're in right now.
So what do? If somebody doesn't want the cats?
Buy a dog. Put a dog in your backyard.
Hi. I want to say I appreciate the city council for considering this and looking at this.
Will you introduce yourself, sir, please?
Yes, my name is Joe Stout, and I'm the president of Mid-Cities Community Cats. Mid-Cities Community Cats is a 501c3 organization. We operate in about 7 cities between around Hurst, Euless, Bedford, DFW Airport, and surrounding cities. There is where we operate. And we actually, since 2014, we've been in operation, and we do TNR every year on 800 to 1,000 cats. And when I first became president of this organization, I was kind of amazed at that the first year, and I thought, well, that's got to be a fluke, but it goes on. It's every year. It's just amazing. And, listening to this, I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but there was a few things that I've heard that I just wanted to just kind of shed a little light from what my experience has been on it. First, I want to say something about the word colonies that we heard. Okay, Councilwoman Big Horse, I know you said you got 9 cats in your yard, and that happens sometimes, but a colony can be 1 cat or 2 cats. So don't be scared off by the thought that we're going to suddenly colonize Saginaw with feral cats. That's not what this is about. It's about less cats. The vacuum effect, I want to just give you an actual recent example of this. We've been working doing TNR in a mobile home community. It's got, I think it's a large one. It's got about 150 homes there. And mobile home communities and apartment communities, people move in and out pretty often, and a lot of times they leave their cats. And I saw on your agenda tonight, I think you're considering some additional multifamily or something. Saginaw is growing, so you're probably going to see more feral cats in the future, or stray cats. Well, in this mobile home park, we've been working there since, I'm going to say 6 months or so, and we have already seen the effects of it, because when we drive into the park now, and we say, well, where are we going to put traps today or whatever, we look around. If we see cats with tipped ears, and so we know that they have been spayed and neutered. We are seeing less and less kittens. When we first went in there, it was in the springtime. There were kittens everywhere, but we're not seeing that reproduction now. We've fortunately our organization has been able to take some of the kittens and socialize them, and then find them homes and get them adopted. It's what we try to do when we can. Most of the time, a feral cat is beyond the point where it's ever going to be able to be adopted by anybody. There was a question about the euthanization decision. Somebody made a real smart comment, said that the vet decides, and that's exactly right. We don't believe in killing healthy cats. But if a vet recommends to us this cat has got a serious illness or something, then yeah, absolutely. If the cat can't have a good quality of life. And just for the record, Texas Coalition for Animal Protection, they are really spay and neuter and vaccinations. They don't really deal with sick cats. So if there's if you have a sick cat, don't take it there. And that's when they would tell us to, our organization, we have some partner vets, and I know the cities they do that already because they have sick animals already. There was some mention about, well, you know, what would you do with this cat in this situation? Well, obviously, and I'm not an animal control person. You got an excellent one here. I'm, you know, really impressed with Jose. But you know, to do this, there has to be an SOP, a standard operating procedure, to say, what are you going to do? Okay, you get a complaint from somebody once. Maybe you go out and you talk to them, you try to educate them. And in our group, we actually work with some of the cities where we are. We have a couple of members that are, you know, they can sell you anything practically. I mean, they're good talkers. And we've really had a lot of success of going and educating people, telling them what we're doing with TNR. And then they say, you know, the alternative is, do you want us to just take this cat and it'll be killed? And, you know, no, they don't really want to do that. And so most people, you know, not everybody, but most people will come around. So then your SOP might be, okay, I've had the same person complain to me 4 times. They really don't want the cat. Now what do I do? Well, at some point, yeah, you got to relocate the cat. Maybe you know, in some situations, but it's not, you know, you shouldn't think that's what we're going to do with every cat. That's the rare situation. Barn cats was mentioned. I just want to say one thing. Barns are not a good solution for every cat. You know, for example, a white cat does not fare well in a barn environment because there's coyotes there, and they, you know, we've done quite a bit of barn cats, and we have some members that are into barn cats, and it's wonderful what they do for certain cats. You got the mean cat that, you know, you can't do anything with it. The place it comes from, nobody wants it there. Yeah, probably got to put that cat in a barn, but it's not the solution for every cat. And as someone mentioned, there's a limited number of barns out there, so you just can't say, oh, we're going to put every cat in a barn. You know, it won't work. So, you know, a lot more things that we're talked about than I thought I could address, but you know, what you really come down to is you've got cats in the community. And, you know, there was one question, well, how many feral cats do we have? Nobody knows. I mean, we don't really know, because in most places you actually don't see these cats. There's probably cats right out here. You come here at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to see some cats. You know, feral cats, for the most part, in the daytime, they stay hidden. They don't go out. They don't want to be where people are. You know, they don't want to interact with people. So you don't know how many are there, but they are there. If you're not going to stop the reproduction and you're not going to vaccinate them, then what are we saying? That we just want to have more and more cats, and we just, you know, or are we just going to round them up and kill them all? And I mean, I don't know if the city council wants to make a public statement that that's what you prefer to do, or so, you know, it's just until there's a better solution. TNR, it does work, and a lot of cities are doing it, and a lot of animal control people I know, they say now that it's the future of how to deal with cats in the cities. And if a city is not doing it now, in some years they will be doing it. It's a train that's coming, and everybody's going to be there. And just lastly, I want to go back to the mobile home park example. In that mobile home park, you know, since we've been there, we found out that about 5 years ago they had a lot of cats, and at that time the city that it was in was loaning out traps, and they were taking cats into the shelter and they were euthanizing them. And guess what? They cleared out the cats out of their mobile home park. They got them out of there. But now they've got over 200 cats, and so they come back. You know, it's the vacuum effect. It's real. And beyond that, I would be happy to, you know, with Jose and other colleagues here, you know, try to answer any questions you might have. But again, thank you for listening and considering this.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, I do have. Jose, you have anything else you want to discuss right now?
No, sir.
All right, I do have a request to speak on this. Mr. Pete, you want to speak?
Thank you. What I did not see in your presentation was like old school. You said the cats and euthanized doesn't work. Why? Why doesn't it work?
Vacuum effect. So
Yeah, okay, I can understand
so
that.
like coyotes, you remove a coyote from the city, more coyotes are going to come back in its place.
Okay.
Okay. If you remove a cat from that area,
But why should we bear the cost of something that basically you catch them and you release them? Doesn't make sense to me. Why?
okay, so hold on.
So I understand
So
that.
what I'm understanding
Patricia.
is, you rather us catch animals and just kill them.
No, why start catching them and then releasing them back in there and do all this work to them?
You're fixing the animal and you're
Right.
sterilizing them.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can't
Yeah.
overpopulate,
Right.
which is what we're having a problem with now is over pet population because
Right.
people are not responsible enough to sterilize
That
their
I
animals.
agree. But why initiate a program that's going to be costly and it doesn't make sense?
Well, because the cats are going to keep coming if they're not sterilized.
Huh?
If you don't start sterilizing them now, they're just going to keep coming back. One cat has 5, 6, 7 kittens. In 4 years, you're going to have, they have 3 or 4 litters each year. I know, I put up with it, okay? That's why I got all those feral cats that are around the daycare. They're all fixed. And it stopped.
You'd have to convince me.
Okay.
Yeah, here a minute.
Have you seen
Yes.
this? Okay. All
You
right,
were
so
supposed to
if you do
have,
not,
you were supposed to have a meeting that we're going to have, and I was hoping we discussed this before we came here.
September 14th is the
Right.
meeting.
Right.
Okay. That's the pyramid.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I got
So if you don't sterilize an animal,
It keeps reproducing.
I know that multiplication. It's just like, any kind of man-induced, expended to go out more. But if you're going to catch them, why release them back and go to sterilize them? Exactly.
And if you don't bring them back to that area, more cats are gonna come in because people are feeding them, people are giving them water. And so you just keep adding more.
yeah,
You will never get rid of cats. You will either have cats that are fixed that don't reproduce and stop the reproduction cycle, or you just don't get them fixed and you'll just get more and more cats. So the thing with TNR is to reduce.
I hold a lot of your views.
Cats, you do TNR.
I hold a lot of your views and stuff like that, but I was hoping to be able to get a chance to talk with this back in September. But I'll be on your committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pete. All right, Jose,
yes, sir.
next step. What's our next steps?
If you would like for us to
Be come back up here, please.
Sorry. If you would like for us to continue on with this, we'll push forward, come up with some better solutions possibly, and some better numbers.
Okay. Council, we up? Mary, you want to say something?
Yeah, I have several comments, but I wondered if anybody else on the front row had anything to add.
Well, before we jump into it, we've been talking to this for almost an hour, and I want to wrap this up. I think I know council's direction, so I want to make sure we don't go too
Well,
far
I
in the
wanted
weeds.
to make
But
sure
I
I
want you to.
think-
I want you to have your say, so please.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of the program. It seems like the only humane and practical thing to do. And you may not totally get rid of that feral cat population ever, but if you keep it the way it is now, it's just going to keep exploding. And I was curious about the life expectancy, and so I was glad you asked that question, Nick, because I assumed feral cats probably had a lower life expectancy than an owned cat.
I heard the 10-year number, and I'm not going to dispute that respectfully, though I've always heard 5 years.
For a feral cat.
For a feral cat.
And to me, that makes it even better able to get rid of them because they naturally die off sooner. They're not reproducing. And it's to me, it's the only logical solution. And, the alternative, do we want to, I'm just wondering, Jose, if we became a go round up the feral cats and kill them all community, do you think you would lose some of your employees?
It's funny that you
I think
mentioned
you'd
that,
move a
'cause
bunch of
back
mad
when I
citizens.
first started animal control, that's what we did. We'd pick the animals up. If they were feral, they were euthanized immediately on the spot.
And I know you have such passionate animal lovers that work there at the animal shelter. I just feel like that would be hard on them emotionally.
So euthanizing an animal, if nobody in here has ever done that before, is very emotional. One, it puts a lot of stress on an animal control officer that does do it on a daily basis if they have to. Okay? That's why we strive at our shelter not to do that as much as possible.
Thank you.
But if we don't do the TNR, you're going to have to euthanize more of them.
Eventually, if we can't find places for them to go, rescue groups or other locations.
What about the people that don't mind trap neuter but do not release back onto my property?
A lot of this is going to be public education. We're going to have to educate the public. We may not
what are you
release
gonna
them back on your property, but they can be released back in that territory.
I just
So what you're saying is you release them back in that territory, and if they're still a nuisance to me, then I'm going to have to take care of the problem myself.
yeah, that's what I'm.
Well, it depends on how you determine whether you're going to take care of that yourself. Are you going to take care of it by poisoning the animal?
I'll take care of it by whatever means I need to.
Okay.
Solve the problem.
Oh, my gosh.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I think
No.
I'm done with this.
You've done well, Jose. I appreciate it. So,
No, hold on. Before we leave, I would like to see the SOP.
well, let's
let's
let's send Jose away. He's got some action items and stuff he's going to bring back to us. Get some more information. Come back with that. He can come back with that with some more dollars, some harder dollars. I think council's asked questions about some hard dollars.
Again,
we
I
need
think
to see
that
that.
this needs to be controlled through the 501c3 and not through tax dollars.
Well, let's see what our
Donations.
Let's see what our options are. I don't know
And
if we
we
have enough
don't
money.
start until we get the money.
Right. I mean, because if it's going to take 2.5 people, then that's a cost. Now, maybe we can offset that, but we should have the total list of every single thing it is, and if we're offsetting it, it should say this is being offset by this way.
Okay.
And before we hang up, I'd also like to very much see more compassion to, like I say, not everybody's the same. So if we have to have something within the SOP, within the policy, for people who do not want these cats on their property. Because right now, I mean, what we're saying is we're going to force it down their necks.
Well, you know
Down their
what?
throats.
I'm just going to say this. I'm not trying to be ugly or anything, but when the cats first got there, nobody let them out there.
Oh, I agree.
They went there all by themselves.
I'm
so-
very sympathetic to that, and I understand it, but, it's...
I know.
I know.
Mr. Tucker?
If we're going to go through the process and the time and effort of doing all this, we need to change the code as well.
Yes.
I agree. Our city ordinance right now.
Or we're going to be
animal
right
control
back in the
needs to
middle
be-
of all this.
Needs to be relooked at, yes, sir. And I'm
Yeah.
currently redoing that as you speak.
And are we going to set a limit on the number of cats that you can have, that you own?
He can have all he wants.
I live in Fort Worth.
I mean, in Saginaw. I mean, because
you
I
look
had
at
a
the-
neighbor that
can you
had
look at the
23
most
cats, and
important
they were a
ordinances,
nuisance.
Jose? The
Yes,
most
ma'am.
important one. Thank
I've
you.
looked at all the ordinances.
you have.
So
You know, I mean, we need to set limits and we need to set bounds.
But there are
And-
already limits to how many cats you can have. It's 3 and 5, or...
It's
3 and 2?
3 cats and 2
it's,
dogs, or
it's
2
5
cats and 3
animals
dogs.
total: 3 cats, 2 dogs, or 3 dogs and 2 cats.
5 animals.
And are we gonna do
You
the
can't
same
count
for
children
dogs?
in that. That's
Oh,
not
we're
enough.
also allowed
Can we have
6
4 or 5
chickens
dogs?
too. So,
Oh, yeah.
ma'am,
4 or 5 dogs, can we have those too?
the ordinance currently states that you're allowed to have 5 animals total, but it has to be a
know.
combination of cats or dogs.
But if you're going to adjust it for the cats, you're going to adjust it for the dog lovers?
I guess we can adjust it and make it a multi-pet permit, where you have to pay so much money to have more than the allowed number of animals per ordinance.
Anything to do to fund this program. The more money we got coming in that doesn't put a burden on our taxpayers.
All right, I think Jose's got some work, some action items. Appreciate your presentation. Come back to us whenever you get all your information, and we'll look forward to it. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you,
Thank you,
y'all.
Kelly and Jose.
Mayor, may I have just one couple of things just for the council to keep in mind. As y'all know, we're going to bring to you a facility needs assessment in a professional service contract, hopefully in September. I have a couple of entries on that, and we're going to make a decision on that soon. Also, just to clear up one thing that I hear going on, the spay and neuter process and the cost of any veterinary care is going to be incurred with any cat that we impound that's going to go back out for adoption or to a rescue center. So whether it's in a TNR program or not doesn't affect that particular cost. Also, and I apologize again, we tried to answer all the questions that we got concerning the program. We usually get those done on Monday. In order to give accurate
information and put that all together and collaborate back and forth. I didn't get that out until this morning about 10:51 a.m. So it is in your inbox if you hadn't seen that yet. If anybody needs a paper copy of it as you leave tonight, I can make that for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, I read it. The replies back, 99% were very well written, very good. I mean, there were some we didn't have data for, but there's, just data. And I can understand why you don't know the number of cats in Saginaw. Cats, that's one of the.
All right, let's move forward, folks. This is a very good subject we'll talk more about in the future. Item 6, consideration action regarding ordinance 2022-12, annual service plan update and 2022 assessment role for public improvements at Belt Mill Public Improvement District. For that, Kyle Sikorsky. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As I alluded to earlier, Chapter 372 Local Government Code is what governs your public improvement district. That code requires that you, as the governing governing board of the PID, approve a service plan update at least annually. The biggest part of that update is the assessment roll that provides the annual installment to be collected on each property within the district, and that annual installment consists of principal, interest, and administrative expenses. So the ordinance before you tonight is just approving that service and assessment plan. The majority of the property is still owned by the original land developer. I believe 1 or 2 lots have close to multifamily properties, so they will be receiving some of the annual installment as well. But just as a reminder, the annual installment only affects the property owners within the PID, and all the administration is paid for through the annual installments by those property owners within the district, and so it has no effect on the rest of your citizens that live outside of the district. If you have specific questions on the update, I'm happy to answer them.
Any non-cat questions for Kyle?
Mayor, I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed, let's see if I can find it in here, on the service plan update that you provided under authorized improvements. It looks like it's on page 4. It has the City of Saginaw's contribution of $950,000, and that's going to be for the booster station. Is that correct?
Correct.
But at the last meeting, I believe it was, we approved almost $1.3 million instead of the $950,000. So, what does that difference mean to the citizens of Saginaw?
Kim needs to answer that, right?
There was a booster pump station for the northwest booster pump station, which I think is the one that you're talking about, and the one that was approved earlier in the spring was this one, which was for Belt Mill.
So we have 2 booster stations we're adding.
We do, currently under construction. So there's no funding yet in the TERS for this, so the enterprise fund is funding it. And I think at the time we said that future, when there's funds available in the TERS, that it could possibly reimburse the enterprise fund.
Could possibly, or will?
That's what I was told. I'm not on the TERS board, so it's not my decision to make.
That's the plan. When the TERS builds value, it'll repay for the booster pump in Belt Mill.
And what are we looking at on the homeowners for the approximate value for each assessment?
So included in the SAP update, it is required that there is a buyer disclosure included for every single property that has an assessment within the district. So you have commercial, multifamily, and future single-family properties within. For the single-family tract, there's a home buyer disclosure included for each one that shows what the current outstanding assessment is, and also on the last page of each disclosure, it includes what the projected annual installment is over the remaining life of the PID, should a future property owner not prepay their assessment in full, which they have the right to do per the statute without any penalty. Currently, the outstanding assessment on each single-family lot type, assuming the developer builds the same amount that we projected in the SAP. That amount is $12,503.84.
You don't think that's going to scare away a bunch of home buyers?
Not in our experience, no. And the district was set up in such a way that with the City of Saginaw tax rate plus the PID tax rate equivalent, it would be equal to the City of Fort Worth tax rate. So you have a very comparable total tax stack in neighboring communities.
So, Mayor and Council, you may think of it this way. If you buy a home that's in a neighborhood association or a homeowners association, you have fees or dues each year. No different, really, than a PID. You're paying an annual assessment. Kyle alluded to you could pay the full upfront amount all in one shot, which sounds like it's a few thousand. But the likely reality is that part of your escrow and your mortgage, you're going to pay it each year. But again, that is not citywide. It's confined to the districts of the PID, and the buyers know beforehand through these mandatory disclosures.
And it's required both at contract and at closing that they are disclosed. So they are receiving these disclosures twice with these schedules showing not just what your outstanding assessment is, but what you're projected to pay on your property tax bill every single year. And as Gabe alluded to, it'll be placed on the county tax bill as a separate line item. So you'll have city, county, ISD, hospital. The Belt Mill PID will be another line item, so it will be collected into escrows that are collected by the mortgage company. So it gets included as part of that property tax bill.
So if I understand right, the 900,000, what it is, if we basically the TRIZ will pay back the city when the money is in that account.
That's correct. So if you'll recall, and I know it's been some time, the related to that agreement was the city received an approximately 5-acre parcel for some public purpose in the future. In return, the city, by virtue of the TERS, will build that pump station, and then the TERS will reimburse. So no impact to direct impact to taxpayers.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure I had it right. So.
Any more questions for Kyle? Questions, concerns? PID? Thank you, sir.
Very much. Appreciate it.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we accept the consideration action regarding the request for change in zoning from...
No, wrong one.
Wrong one.
6.
Service
Consideration
plan.
action regarding the ordinance number 2022-12.
I second.
Valerie, second. Let's vote. I need to come with something better to say than let's vote. That doesn't sound very professional, very mayoral, does it? Sorry.
It's okay.
All right, thank y'all. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it, sir. Well done. Number 7, at 7:22, we're in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding a request for change in zoning from neighborhood commercial and multifamily 2 to multifamily 1 on 2.987 acres of land out of the Alexander Albright Survey Abstract 1849, more commonly known as 800 West McElroy. For that, we have Anand Patel. Or somebody else going to do that from the city, or just Anand? I guess you are. Come on.
Hi, my name is Andy Patel with Journey Capital. I'm the developer for the 2.97 acres referenced, and we are coming in for a rezone for this site from neighborhood commercial and multifamily 2 to multifamily 1 to expand for our senior living cottages for phase 3.
Questions for this gentleman?
Gabe, please explain again the difference between multifamily 1 and 2.
It's a density limit, so this is the lowest density that's being requested, and Mr. Patel and his company and associates, so they have built the additions of the phase 1 cottages. They are in construction now for phase 2, which is a memory care facility. So the remainder tract is this 2.9 acres. It's really, really deep, so it's in between the fire station under construction and I guess it would be the memory care. And the property owner, Ms. Bierling, they have a contract for sale, and I think from what I've heard, you're planning maybe smaller units based on feedback, affordability feedback. So the plan is to have smaller units, although market rate.
Yep. 36 units, all single story.
How many units?
36.
36?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Other questions for this gentleman?
Yeah, in the meeting you had with the zoning thing, there was some questions brought up about noise.
Mhm.
And I never could find out exactly how that was answered, so can you answer that for us? What do we want to do about it? Because citizens actually brought that up with concern with noise and stuff, so.
Right. I actually did reach out to one of the residents that came out last week during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and their major concern was having some sort of fence line against their home. One of them lives right behind us, and so we did reassure them on our phase 1. We did put up an 8-foot fence, and we're going to plan to do that on phase 2 and this phase right now too. We'll put up a fence to reduce visibility from their home to what we're doing, and then on the noise, it's with the cottages, these are seniors. Hopefully, they're not throwing parties or anything, but it's just.
Oh, they're the worst, I'll tell you. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's just really going to be during the term of the construction.
Are you going to put trees or anything, any other kind of barrier besides just a fence?
In the back, yes. On the homes, yes. On the front, landscaping plans will comply with the city of Saginaw's.
So people really complain about seniors raising Cain and making noise?
You're not there yet, Todd, but you're close, okay?
I know, but I know you're a little wild, Valerie.
I know.
Most people are restrained, so, okay. I'm just curious.
Yep.
Other questions?
How many units do you have rented out at the other phases?
Yeah, so right now on the first phase, we have 22 units, and as of today, we have 19 deposits, with most of them moved in and just deposits, and they'll be moving in this month and the next
Out of
days.
how many units?
22.
You have 22 units, but 19
Leased out, correct.
leased out. Okay.
And I don't know if
many-
we can ask this or not, but the price of the smaller one, is it going to be more affordable for the seniors?
Yes. So on phase 1, we have 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. So the 1 bedroom is currently priced at around $3,000. The 2 bedroom is at $3,500, and that's like it's all inclusive. Utilities, rent, insurance, landscaping, and all that. So the feedback we're getting is that it's just a little bit outside the price point. So we wanted to cater that to something that is within their price point. So we're doing a little bit smaller units and something that can be affordable to that price
About
point.
how much are they going to be, do you know?
They'll start out around $2,400.
Because most people on Social Security don't make but, what, $1,800 a month? Isn't that about what it is? That's on the top end. That's why I'm asking.
Right.
Is it going to be feasible for our seniors in Saginaw? Because, top end is $1,800. Most of them don't have much more than that because they don't work. They're seniors. So.
Right, yeah.
There'll be new residents of Saginaw.
Could be.
True, too.
It could be.
Absolutely, that's true.
But I worry about the ones in Saginaw. That's the ones I love, yeah.
So,
Okay.
I guess one of the big concerns I have is moving away. This is yet another, for some reason it got zoned years ago, I guess, as neighborhood commercial. And now we're saying it really isn't a good fit. Now, was the land around it got bought up and it just squeezed it into this? I'm struggling. I really, really hate to move yet the only piece of land we got left over there as a commercial where something could be built that, of that type into FM1.
I mean, part of the problem is we put a fire station next to it.
Right.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, and the adjacent use is already assisted living, senior housing, which came up as a desire from residents in 2018 as Citizen Summit. The reality is the depth of that lot doesn't really lend itself to much else than an extension of the product. I think there's some affordability concerns, which, although to be clear, this is market rate, so it sort of fits the box.
So was the other property where the fire station, was that originally listed as commercial?
No, I think a portion of that was already zoned multifamily. Do you remember?
Are you talking about our property or the fire station?
No, the fire station.
Fire station, I believe, is neighborhood.
I thought it was commercial.
Yeah, I think.
It was commercial. There's Barbara.
Well, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Barbara's right there.
Howdy, ma'am. I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
Susie might know. So.
So originally, back when it was a
much main frontage is that?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head right now on our site. No, I don't know. I have to go back.
Trying to see, could we put a local, an entrepreneur come in there and put like a little neighborhood convenience store or something in there? Would that be?
It is so deep, they wouldn't be able to utilize all of it. And right.
But we know when we say deep, is it? I'm sorry, I didn't look at that.
Mr. Long, are you asking about neighborhood and commercial frontages for that?
Yeah.
It would be 20 feet.
20 feet. Oh.
And so they don't have a minimum lot area or width in regards to that.
Yeah.
But the left side is currently MF2, so if you were to approve this, it would be going lower in density.
Yeah.
Currently, the MF1 requirement would be 2.5 stories. I'm sorry, but MF1. So I think he said he was proposing 1 story.
1 story.
So it would be even lower.
Yeah, it's less than.
And so MF2 is 3 stories. So.
All right, other questions, Mary?
I just wanted to speak in favor of the zoning. To me, it's an upgrade. That piece of property is a very long, narrow rectangle that is cut in half.
Right.
One side is MF2, which is more dense than what they're asking for. And the other side, that one half of that lot that would be commercial, I think it would remain undeveloped forever.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have the ability for someone to build MF2 on one side and an ugly vacant lot on the other side.
Yeah, but
So
you could change
MF
MF2 to NC.
One, and the intent to build more of those affordable cottages there that are already next to it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Other
How
questions?
many
Okay.
roads do you plan on having, and will that road wrap around and connect to Phase 2?
How many
Roads?
Roads. Oh,
Roads.
It'll be just one road kind of wrapping around as a U, sideways U.
It will be inside that one
Mhm.
lot?
Mhm.
Or will
It'll be inside that lot and connecting to our assisted living memory care driveway.
So it'll just go down and then connect?
Mhm.
Okay. Because I worry about these guys and those guys.
Since it's multifamily, it will require a site plan to come before P&Z and as well. So before the site plan comes, we usually have development review committees, and so we'll review the loop around. It's usually fire does want it to loop around, they're going to have enough access, so those comments will be attributed before then.
Okay, excellent. Other questions for Mr. Patel? Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it. This is a public hearing. If anyone from the audience wishes to speak, now's your chance. You don't have to fill out a card. You can just approach the microphone. If nothing else, at 7:33, I take us out of a public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-13 as submitted.
Okay. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Flaggy. Let's vote. I can come up with a better catchphrase. All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate the information. Item number 8 at 7:34. Take us back into a public hearing. Consideration action regarding amending the Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, zoning ordinances, amending Article 5, permitted uses, a lot of other stuff. Our friend Abra Nusser. Abra, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I come before you with a very exciting item about code amendments, but it is to implement our comp plan that we just recently adopted and worked together to come up with while we get this situated. PowerPoint here. But we are starting to implement the comp plan. Of course, many items already have begun implementation, but this is our first code item. So when I stood here and said, the code amendments are going to come forward, and that's where the rubber meets the road, and we can figure out how we want it to look then and how we want to implement our vision. So comp plan was adopted in March. Zoning is part of the implementation of a comp plan, because if you just have the vision and no standards, then it's generally not going to come true. So we're proposing a new neighborhood mixed-use district that's consistent with the future land use plan that you approved, and the vision that's in that document. On August 9th, P&Z recommended approval of this item. And then we did do some additional design focus group work on potential development scenarios since P&Z. So I've got a couple of slides to just clarify a couple of items. So this is the future land use plan that's in our new comp plan. And as you can see, there's some pink areas that are designated neighborhood mixed use. So that's why we're bringing forward this zoning change to actually make a district called neighborhood mixed use that matches the vision. So highlighted in teal is just a different view of those parcels, mostly undeveloped, and some infill sites. I don't know what's going on there. So these are the visionary pictures that were included with this district. You can see it could be residential structures, it could be low intensity commercial, as we were talking about on the previous item. So citizens of Saginaw, community members, really interested in seeing some of those commercial uses, but we also understand that some of these are very large pieces of land, and some residential may be okay, which we can discuss. So in the comp plan, it does say a mix of land uses, such as coffee shops, bakeries, corner stores, boutiques, limited residential, and park and or trail land uses. And then it's supposed to be low intensity, maximum of 2 stories, because these areas are adjacent to residential areas. So maybe not the frontage, but the developments overall do have residential adjacency. And then forms should easily blend with the neighborhood character, and it should be walkable. So these are the policies that are in the comp plan, utilizing a context-sensitive approach, just understanding that not every parcel is the same, not every development's the same. They're going to have different things around them. And then encourage partnerships with local neighborhood leaders to determine what types of development residents want or need in their adjacent homes, and then or adjacent to their homes rather, and then ensure that new development is low intensity and consistent with what's around it. So there's the pictures again. I'm not going to have time to run through all of these, but generally speaking, what we did want to point out here is that we did start with the neighborhood commercial district, and we removed some uses that we felt were not as compatible adjacent to residential uses. And then we added some things that were very low intensity, we're going to talk about the residential component here, but I can circle back to any of these. Specific use permit, again, we added some SUP requirements to some uses that were a little bit shaky to us next to residential. So those are in there. And then, again, I can circle back to any of those. So the purpose is to provide for that low-intensity mixed use, as recommended in the comp plan. The permitted uses would be in accordance with the slides I just went through, but are in your packet. But the key thing is a minimum of 70% of the development frontage along major corridors for a depth of at least 100 feet shall consist of ground floor commercial uses not directly associated with the development's residential leasing or residence service areas. So if you've got a small apartment complex or something, you can't count the postal center of your apartment complex as commercial. So you've got to have legitimate kind of commercial uses to activate that frontage, because that's the feedback we received, right? We want walkable corridors and we want commercial development along our key corridors is what we heard. So that's what that is intended to do. Definition of development, just a clarification. Each contiguous undeveloped area highlighted on that map I showed you is generally considered a development. So there's individual parcels or there's big areas under single ownership. There's not a lot of them, but they are out there. So just wanted to clarify what development meant. Area requirements, minimum lot area, lot width, lot depth, not applicable. So typically these things are really market driven. It's not as common these days to have a minimum lot area, lot width, and lot depth, especially for mixed use, because you want to allow the market to innovate to get those fun entertainment things and new housing types. Trying to require a 10 to 20 foot build-to zone. So what that is, it's not a setback. That means it actually has to be, I actually have a graphic, I'll circle back. So the residential area requirements, maximum 8 dwelling units per acre, which is low. So we can talk about that. And what we wanted to do is focus on residential use in general, since we want to allow limited residential according to the comp plan, and just cap the density. So, that way it's a low intensity, and we can talk about what that looks like, but they could get up to 10 dwelling units per gross acre if they provided what we're calling an activated amenity. So we're really looking for those family-oriented gathering places, activated plazas, pocket parks. That's what we've heard that the community wants. So we're actually incentivizing developers to provide those amenities so that we have them as new development comes in or as infill comes in.
Abra,
Yep.
what's an activated plaza? Activated plaza?
Planner jargon, sorry. So it does list it in the proposed ordinance amendment, but basically you can't just have, I could get really nerdy for you, but you can't just have pavers and a tree. You need to have, a fountain and some benches and, some sort of things that allow activity. So you have to activate the space with some sort of playground equipment or something to do. But it is spelled out in the ordinance what activated amenity includes. I might have a slide on it somewhere. So the build-to zone, the front of the building needs to be within that zone. So that's really going to help us create a street room, right? Because a lot of the frontage is going to be at a similar setback. So if you have a minimum 10-foot setback, they can be set back 60 feet. And it really busts up that Main Street type feel that we're looking for. So that's why we have a build-to zone where we are trying to get the fronts of buildings generally consistent along the edge of the street. Activated amenities, there you go. Minimum of 15% gross land area for green space. It's got to be manicured. You can't just designate your floodplain as green space. You've got to actually manicure it. You can aerate your detention pond and put benches and trash receptacles around it and pathways. And then there you've got your activated amenity again. So living compatibility screen, again, trying to protect our existing residential neighborhoods. We put this buffer in. We see it in some cities, and we thought it was a good add here for this type of development. But minimum 20-foot wide landscape buffer along the common property line with residential use or zoning. And minimum 1 canopy tree per 30 linear feet. And you can't group them together and put them all on the north side. You've got to put 1 canopy tree per 30 linear feet. So that provides shade, it provides landscaping, help buffer noise, light, all those things. And then connection to the adjacent neighborhood, leading to an adjacent right-of-way, sidewalk, and or trail as applicable. So if there's an existing masonry wall, we're not going to require them to bust through it and connect to the neighborhood. But if the neighborhood has stubbed a trail to the vacant parcel, then that's what that's meant to do. Or if there's a trail that's contiguous to that property, we really want them to connect to that. So staff, or depending on the type of submittal, we would make sure that that would come through. Screening of parking lots, right? So if you're having parking for commercial uses, we want to make sure that we're not over cementing things and we're protecting the views and making things look nice. So we added in screening of parking lots, screening of loading areas. So if you get a restaurant, they're going to be getting deliveries, or you could have odd hours of deliveries depending on what type of commercial use, dumpster servicing, that type of thing. So screening of loading areas was something that we added in just as a neighborhood protection for this kind of use. So next steps, obviously answer any question tonight. The recommendation that we are proposing does have a couple of conditions. We wanted to recommend approval subject to city attorney review and refinement to achieve intent. So if there's something little technical about one of the standards upon final city attorney review that meets the intent and is not substantive, then we would want to be able to do that. And then just designating in a particular section who determines about a screening wall if it is detrimental. So it's just designating city manager or his designee, just to clarify who makes that decision. So, and then next step after tonight, after we get feedback and whatnot, would be additional code amendments to start implementing the comp plan. We're doing this just first little batch. We didn't want to give too much to chew on at once. But, we would keep refining neighborhood mixed use over time if something wasn't working, and then we would come forward with community mixed use and Saginaw Boulevard and all those things that we put together as a group. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, that one up there, you said the city manager. Read it from here. So why wouldn't that just go through our standard process for any homeowner if they want to go, and it comes before, what do they call that?
So it's not a variance. This is just like an administrative modification. So when we have this type of item that's really small and not make or break, then we'll see that delegated to staff. So typically it's going to be, Susie or the DRC that would make that decision. So that's what that provision means. But it wouldn't be a major, it was just like a placement of a screening device. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, Mary.
So do you find many cities adopting such a zoning ordinance these days?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's kind of a new concept, or?
It is the modern take on zoning to approach things more form-based. So if we understand that we just want things to be low intensity and protect existing residential neighborhoods, we want things to look nice, and we want to control the height, but we don't necessarily care, what type of structure. If there's 4 units or, 2 units or they're townhomes, we just want it low intensity next to these residential areas. So a lot of cities are adopting mixed-use districts, but as you can see, we put protections in terms of how many dwelling units you can have, screening, landscaping, height, those types of things for protection adjacent to residential areas.
Well, it makes really good sense because so many new projects are mixed-use developments.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that is the way developers are going.
Yeah.
And it does offer more flexibility and what can go on a particular piece of land. And they can all look very different and have very different types of looks. So I think that's interesting. I have a question I was reading about, I think it was about signs, and it said, no spiked signs allowed, and I wonder what that is.
So in the neighborhood mixed-use standards...
Or spiked fencing. It was spiked fencing.
Yeah, that's in your ordinance currently.
So I've never heard that term, and I don't know what it is.
We tried to go in with a scalpel instead of a bomb, but we didn't touch some of those existing provisions. Spiked fencing just literally is spikes. Oh, spiked fencing. Oh, no, that's a term. So spiked fencing is when, say, you hate your neighbor and they don't maintain their backyard to your standards. So you're going to put up the most hideous wall that you can possibly make and then paint it neon green with purple polka dots on their side. That's called spite fencing for punishment. Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Spiteful.
Just saying.
Yeah. Spite fencing is a thing. There's also spite painting.
All right, other questions for Abra?
Yeah, so are you still looking at putting in more multifamily in these?
So
we talked about the cat problem.
Yep.
And that, it seems like those kind of go hand in hand. More multifamily.
What we are recommending here is that you allow residential uses of generally any type, and you cap the density. So there's a lot of different types of multifamily. what we heard is we don't want the 200, 300 unit garden style multifamily. It's too much. Traffic's too bad. We're scared about the impacts of noise and all these things. So at 8 dwelling units per acre maximum, that's very low intensity. So, it could be single family, standard single family detached. It could be single family attached townhomes. It could be live work units. It could be 8-unit mansion style apartments. But at 8 dwelling units per gross acre, that's really going to cap a lot of the fear that we heard during the community feedback about what we're trying to prevent. But I think where I know we landed was some limited residential was okay if it gets us the fun stuff, like Spanish tapas restaurants with patios and stuff like that. But people want that fun stuff, and to make it pencil for developers, a lot of times you do want to have people who can walk to the business. And so it's the low-intensity mixed-use developers that we see. Typically, they will have someone who specializes in residential and someone who specializes in commercial, but not both. So they'll mix and match on their development to place commercial structures and residential structures, and then they'll put amenities in between.
One of the complaints that I heard over at Highland Station is when they put that apartment complex off of Bailey Boswell and 156.
There's no barrier.
Those apartments now allow all the noise from the park to bounce back to the neighbors. And I know they're talking about possibly a berm, but I don't think they're doing enough to help the people who were there first that have to put up with the noise. So what is your plan to keep noise down for the people who are already there?
So we've got a number of things that we put in to try to mitigate that and protect existing residents. First is a cap on height. Maximum 2 stories is going to cap a lot of those issues. We've got in the minimum 20-foot landscape buffer with canopy trees planted 1 per 30 linear feet, minimum 3-inch caliper at the time of planting. That's going to mitigate noise, aesthetics, light along that shared boundary. We put in screening of loading areas. We put in screening of parking lots. There's several things that we put in to kind of try to protect existing residential, even more so than it is now, for these low-intensity mixed-use developments coming in. If they come in today with like neighborhood commercial zoning or something like that, none of these protections would apply that we're proposing tonight. So they're already entitled currently.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we pass this and someone wants to come in and make one of these developments and take advantage of this new zoning, they would go talk to Susie, I guess, her department, and you would walk them through everything and help them understand, what's required, et cetera. Then would that go to planning and zoning and then go to us, or would it just be approved because they meet the zoning?
It depends on the proposed use. So currently in Saginaw's ordinance, a use such as multifamily, the site plan goes to P&Z and it goes to council, which is not typical, but it's extra review so that you guys get to see it. If it was single family detached, it would just be a plat, and it would be allowed by right. So depending on the use, if it's allowed and there's no site plan required, theoretically you could do a phased development, which is typically how it comes in, where they would leave the commercial pad sites for development and they would put in the residential in the back first to get the walkable trips in first. And so they would still have to reserve that commercial frontage as part of their development. But if they wanted to put single-family residential in the back and plat it in separate lots, they could just do that with a plat without additional review.
So now when mixed-use developments try to come in, it's already laid out everything that's expected to be in every particular space. So would it be done as a unit, or would someone just get to come in and do a residential part and wait for somebody else to come in and do the other part, or would it be presented as one whole?
One
Or
of the
could it
things
vary?
One of the things that we can add is called a GDP, General Development Plan, and we can add that as part of your intent that the development does have to do a GDP, and that way before they start development we know exactly, well, conceptually I prefer not to go to site plan level detail until they need to, just for the entitlement process, because it's a little cart before the horse to go all the way to site plan. But if we can at least know where the commercial is going to be and what the phasing is going to be before they start platting and get their building permits, then we know what to expect. And if that GDP ever needs to change, then they would have to come before depending on who you want to approve it. You can just have P&Z approve that, or it could come to council. But it would not have the same effect as a planned development. So there wouldn't be as much detail. A GDP is more conceptual. But you could condition your approval tonight to add in a GDP.
So one of the things I asked back was, how many parcels of land do we have currently left that's open in Saginaw that we think would get moved to this NMU?
Mm-hmm.
And if there are we just, say we approve this today, then are we going to just go ahead and the ones that we think there, would we just immediately move them to that?
We would need to move forward with city-initiated rezoning, which is typical after a comp plan. There are options where you can let the property owners request it and have it trickle in, but then you don't change the entitlements that are already on the property to be consistent with your vision.
That's what I was worried about. I was sitting here going through it. I'm like, well, hold on. If we don't switch them and then we leave them zoned the way they are, then it's not doing us any good. And now we're giving them an option. They get to sit there and compare and say, which one's better for us?
And the more
better for the city.
Efficient thing that we talked about doing is possibly doing city-initiated rezoning, which is, again, very typical after a comp plan. We've talked about multiple parcels through the past couple of years that have zoning on them that aren't consistent with the vision anymore. So those would come next. And some of these parcels you can see in teal are adjacent to residential areas, and we would come before you with that rezoning request if that's your direction.
So
me personally, that's what I think.
So if we go forward with this and we want to rezone something, does the landowner have a right of refusal to rezone it, or?
So I'm going to get into attorney realm here, but I'll give you a very general answer and let him clean it up. So there is a specific process that the city goes through to do city-initiated rezoning, and we would follow that.
Right, so property owners have the right under state law to file a written protest, and that would trigger a supermajority vote in order to approve a forced rezoning. We'd also want to be cognizant of any of these parcels that may have started or expended any money on development plans, because we don't want to interfere with any investment-backed expectations that they might have at that time. But if there are no development plans that have been put in place and no money has been expended and this is vacant property, then the sole remedy is for a written protest to be filed. And obviously, with or without the supermajority threshold requirement, you can take into consideration a property owner's objection to the rezoning.
But then you could still technically vote to rezone it still, right? Yeah, with a supermajority vote.
So what is left to develop after the teal colored blocks?
So next we would probably go for community mixed use, which is going to be like, on the south side of Bailey Boswell, east of the tracks, that strip that's undeveloped, we talked about that being community mixed use, so that does not have residential adjacency. So the standards that we put in the comp plan allow for a little bit more vibrancy in terms of intensity. But again, if I bring it forward at that time, you guys can kind of weigh in. Is this what we expected? Do we want to tweak anything? Or we can do another district. We could do Saginaw Boulevard next, but I think one of the priorities that we've heard is the amount of entitled multifamily currently. We can, there's a lot of ways to peel an orange.
Well,
Was that turquoise area, was those the areas that
Yeah, they're
potentially?
Yes, so those are all of the areas designated neighborhood mixed use on the future land use plan. And as Mr. Meredith alluded to, if there's already development proposals in, we would treat those just a little bit differently in terms of how we approach them.
So what if we don't want to put the neighborhood mixed use at all of these locations? I mean, what's it going to cost us
Yeah.
to change the zoning on these things again? Let's say we want to come in and just want to make it,
Yeah.
commercial mixed use instead of neighborhood mixed use.
So state law requires that if you have a comprehensive plan, that you zone in conformance with it. So, if someone ever did come in and want to rezone, they would need to conform to the comp plan. So this is,
Can't we
just
change
being
the comp
proactive.
plan?
Yes, you
Okay.
can do a comp plan amendment. Is that what?
You want to change it already? We just approved it.
Well, no, I mean, I'm asking questions. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to be tied to something that may not fit 3, 4, 5 years from now.
We do recommend, updating your comp plan every 3 years. You get residents that move out, you get residents that move in, community sentiment changes, pandemics happen,
Well, we got building coming in all around us, and the
Yeah.
last thing we want to do is, cram more people in here at rush hour.
Well, you need to definitely keep it fresh, and that's why, you shouldn't wait 20 years. You just, if it's not working, then you take forward you maybe have a town
And
hall
what does that
meeting on the
cost us?
topic, and then you take forward a comp plan amendment and change it. It is an organic document that can change, but
What does that cost us?
what does what cost?
Amending the comp plan, changing the zoning?
It depends on the scope of how
So-
much you want to amend
Yeah.
in the comp plan.
Mr. Mayor, Council, rezoning or city-initiated rezoning of a parcel requires standard notification. It can be done in a two-step process to P&Z, to the council. I think the initial thought from the comprehensive plan process, the parcels that were probably wanted to make comply with the comprehensive plan would be like the corners of Old Decatur and McElroy.
That's one of
So,
the pink ones up there.
Currently, you could have a commercially zoned project come in that is loud, has a lot of light, directly impacts the adjacent single-family neighborhood. So, 100 feet tall, So the intention is to make this more smaller scale, lower footprint, neighborly. And again, your action tonight is just to approve the zoning district. That is separate action to applying zoning, which are legal entitlements to a specific property.
And in addition to that, a property owner could come in and request neighborhood mixed-use zoning.
Yeah.
And if it fit the general, it doesn't have to match the colors on the future land use plan exactly if it meets the overall intent of the comp plan. So say, for example, one of the red areas wants to be pink. And that's a lower intensity, and, they were looking for something in that district. They could request that, and you could make that decision. So property owners could also request to be zoned NMU.
Well, I saw some on your list of allowable businesses and even your special use businesses. I saw some that I just don't even want on there.
We can remove them.
Is it-
You can condition
we-
your approval.
Can we table this and then have you send us that presentation and then vote on it next meeting?
You can do whatever we want.
We're
Council can take
open
whatever
to
action we
changes.
want.
Yeah.
Is that-
I've
Go ahead, Abra.
There's some interest, development interest in this, amendment getting passed. People are excited to bring in this type of development. So, not to say it's time sensitive, but it is a bit time sensitive.
We got, a meeting next
But
week?
if you guys could get us your recommended changes, we could.
Because I don't see chicken places on there.
You what?
I don't see chicken places listed on here.
Like restaurants to eat chicken, or?
Yeah, like more chicken places.
She's making a joke.
Oh, it's like what kind of chicken place?
Maybe
are we
Cindy's
talking
just
about?
hungry. I don't know.
We have like 6.
Nope.
Yeah.
In a mile area.
Yeah.
Love 'em that are missing.
Unfortunately, but yeah, or you can condition your approval tonight with removing the ones that you don't want on there.
I'd prefer to read it before I vote on it. That's just my opinion.
Further, you mean go over
I'd table it.
Take things out?
Table it.
Is that what you mean?
Table it till the next meeting.
What's the will of the council? What does everybody else want to do?
I'd like to study it some more.
You okay with that, Paul? What
Yep.
do you think? Okay. Charlie? Mary?
Would it be difficult if we went ahead and passed it to then amend the uses we don't like quickly?
No.
Or would that be it?
It would not be
No.
difficult to do that.
I would rather do it that way.
But
You know,
again, I'm going to make a conceptual statement, and Mr. Meredith might have to clean it up. So if someone does submit when in that interim time, then they would be under those regulations.
and
When
I
is your
did-
next council meeting? Does anybody know?
September.
6th? Okay.
Or after Labor Day?
We had one for the 22nd.
We do. It's going to be
That's
very brief, though.
Budget, just.
It's going to be just budget, and then we're going to, we probably won't even vote on budget. So we'll talk about
But I have one more comment, which might help Cindy's other question about what if we don't want to keep all these NMUs or neighborhood mixed use? So, looking into the future, if this is adopted as a zoning district, and then we go through the city-initiated rezoning, and we do actually rezone several parcels, neighborhood mixed use, would it still not be possible for a developer to come in and ask for a zoning change other on that property other than neighborhood mixed use?
Yes.
People ask for zoning changes
Yes.
all the time.
And
So,
at that
and that would have to come before us, and we would be able to say, well, we like this neighborhood mixed use better, or, oh, that's an unusual, wonderful concept.
As long as it's
comprehensive plan. But it would have to fit with the comprehensive
Well,
plan.
it only has
unless we amend
in
it.
general. So, the goals, objectives, the comp plan is more than just the future land use plan. In a lot of cities, if it doesn't match the exact color, then, they'll do a comp plan amendment at the same time. There's some different schools of thought on that. But in general, what we see is it needs to be generally compliant with the comp plan and the vision and the policies, and if something's not exactly the same color, then you could decide that at that time if it complies.
But it is possible that some of these could change via developer request that we all think is a good idea. So,
Yep.
So-
Is there any direction on the residential component? Or do you need any more information by the time we get back on the residential side in terms of capping the density?
I think what the concern was just being able to take your presentation, review it.
Sure.
Mark it up, and then see if that.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Perfectly stated.
Okay. And if you let me know in advance, I can make some slides and maybe put together some helpful things.
All right, so the council, we want to table?
I make a motion that we table. Okay, get out.
Mayor.
Okay.
So, but keep that thought.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, yes, sir. I was just going to suggest, do you want to conduct the public hearing and close it out, or do you want to, we could also table the public hearing to the next meeting as well.
We can close it out, can't we? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
We have that option. All right, so thank you, Abra. So it is a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak in the audience, now is your time to approach the microphone. Speak on this subject if you would like. All right, then at 8:09, take us out of a public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, Mayor, I make a motion that we table this until our next session and we get some more information.
Second it.
Look, everybody seconded.
And that would be September
3 of
6th,
them.
correct?
September 6th.
In terms of next session.
September 6th. Please cast your votes.
Who was the first one to second it? 3 of y'all raised your hands at once. Charlie, I guess.
Yeah, any of us.
Thank you, Abra. All right. All right, item number 9. At 8:09, we're back in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance, City of Saginaw, Texas, regarding regulation of carports, ordinance 2022-15. For that, Susie Victor Trevino. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. So today we have a proposed ordinance to change zoning textural amendment in regards to that. Regarding carport ordinance, this was brought through inquiries of City Council, and so we're essentially just cleaning up the special use table. The only changes here are going to be zoning aspects. It's not going to touch any of the standards. So all of the standards are going to stay the same. We're hoping that a different department is going to bring that forth in front of y'all at a later time. So this is just changing the zoning aspect of it. So essentially, this proposal will be allowing all residential uses to have a special use permit for application for this carport. So
what was coming second? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry?
You said there was a second part coming later?
Yeah, so essentially, this is just the zoning aspect. So we have a use table. The use table basically indicates what is allowed and what it's not currently. At a later time, the standards themselves might change, but that would be a separate presentation. Currently, we're only discussing, sorry, I don't know if this is going in and out. We're currently only discussing where it's going to be allowed. So it'll be on a case-by-case basis for residential is what we're proposing.
Okay. So this is just to say it's going to be allowed if you can apply for a permit and you'll be allowed it, but the actual what's being allowed will be done at a
Yes, sir.
Separate.
Yes. So today we're only presenting the change for residential areas to have a case-by-case basis through a special use permit. So essentially, if you want to have a carport currently, you have to be in the carport ordinance district, overlay district. If y'all were to approve this, then any resident can apply through the special use permit. However, it is important to note that they would still have to abide by those supplemental conditions that the overlay district currently has. We're going to get rid of the overlay district completely, but all of those regulations and standards are still going to be attached to the permit use table.
So the carports that, if they do a SUP, the carports would really have to match the housing. We're not just going to have a metal thing put on everywhere in Saginaw, are we?
It has to match the current regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the regulations aren't changing. All of that you had previously approved will still be the same.
Okay.
Hopefully at a later date, a different department will present that.
Okay.
So any of the regulations then basically be the same across all Saginaw for residential?
Yes, for residential. And then industrial, it's going to be permittable, but again, it's going to have those same supplemental conditions. Currently, the special use table doesn't have industrial as permittable, but we do have an industrial overlay district, so it's kind of contradictory. So basically, it would just clean that up so that if a resident or developer was looking at that, it would fly across the board at all of them.
Okay, so I read the paperwork that came with this, and so I just want to make sure, is that what we're voting on, everything that was in the packet today?
Yeah, so
we changed it?
Mayor and Council, what it would allow by SUP for residential use, and then in the districts noted, to request a carport, which is not allowed currently. Now, Susie mentioned some of the design standards. You kind of mentioned this in an email, what if it's 10 feet, 20 feet tall? Still have to abide that, and a lot of that is case by case. So probably this is a low frequency event, so the average person that wants to build a carport, once they realize it needs to match their neighborhood, essentially the home, that may, there's a fair amount of cost.
Well, I have a question about, the reason I asked that question is, we can't dictate what goes on the outside of a building now or a home, right?
Masonry.
The masonry.
Masonry.
For a primary structure, my understanding from city attorney with a accessory structure, we would have more control through the SUP process.
Well, so a carport's not a building. That's what I would argue. Okay, you'll find attorneys that are willing to argue the opposite if you pay them enough. But my contention is that a carport's not a building.
Right.
But we are preempted on regulating the exterior materials for residential and commercial buildings.
Okay.
But
the reason I was asking is because I don't want some new home to say, well, I don't have to match the outside of my house. I want a metal one, and we have this little flab sticking out there that's not going to look good through the city.
Right.
Yeah, but
And I'm not being ugly. I'm just saying. I'm just making a remark.
But there are several streets that still have those metal carports.
I know, but
can you continue to match those?
Well,
Or
yeah,
does
if
it
it
have to
matches
match?
your house or whatever. What I'm saying is you don't want, my house is all brick and everything, and all my neighbors would be really mad at me if I just stuck a piece of metal out there, you know, and we can't dictate what the outside of a building, what goes on the outside of a building now, so, in the house, so, yeah.
But this
that's
is
what I
now
was asking.
attached to, directly attached to a building. How does an HOA play into this? What sort of control do they have over these SUPs?
They have no, sorry.
I'm sorry. There you go.
They have no, that is a separate list of private property covenants that has no bearing on city regulations. Anyone who proposed to build a carport through the city process would want to make sure they do their due diligence and make sure whatever they're building complies with whatever the covenant and restrictions are for the HOA.
Okay, good.
Oh, gotcha. I didn't hear HOA.
Yeah. Well, if the HOA, if
The
they don't,
HOA can restrict on their own that not have carport.
well, if they say no, you can't get one, can you? Yeah,
If it's in
what I
their
thought.
bylaws, yeah.
That's a different, that's outside of our.
Yes,
That's
it
outside
is.
of our purview.
Mhm.
Yes.
So the SUP would need
That's
to come
right.
before us.
Councilmember Copeland?
To go along with what Valerie said, on letter A, number 6, it gave 3 different types of roofing material that were allowed. And I think we should say that it has to match the house. In other words, if you have brown tone shingles, don't put, what else would, don't put something completely different. And I don't even like the idea of having a metal roof be allowed.
So
I think it should match the main structure.
So that's an excellent point. I think I want everyone to be aware that we did not provide any revision to the technical construction standards that were previously present in your industrial carport overlay district. We just simply added the right to install a carport by SUP in residential areas. So with that said, you have 2 paths you can follow. An SUP allows you to attach reasonable conditions on a case-by-case basis. Alternatively, if you want to augment, improve the minimum standards for a carport in a residential district, we have not done that. And so you all may want to think about adding those standards to this
Yes.
ordinance.
And I think the color scheme should be compatible with the main structure or the same color. And, you know, we don't want that carport to distract from the main building. So keeping it as much in conformance with the main structure.
So what do we
should
need to
be
do
in
to
there.
put that back in there? I mean, get that in there.
Right. So you all will need to dictate what standards you'd like to see. So either in the ordinance as a minimum, or because you would require an SUP, you could
Put it in
come
the
up with the
SUP.
standards on a case-by-case basis. Those are your 2 options, candidly.
Yeah, because I know one time when I had to build it, had in there like an outbuilding. It had in there that it had to have the same look and build as the house, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's what we're all looking for is
something.
whatever that technical wording is.
Yes. I know our chief building official has some ideas in mind to change in terms of standards. He's looking at what other cities are implementing. But like Bryn said, we're just right now currently the only thing that we're bringing before you was the zoning aspect of it.
Okay.
So of course, as he suggested, if you wanted to currently add that to that, you can.
Yeah.
So what about grandfathering
So these other
these
things
in?
you talked about, you guys are going to come back later.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is a low frequency event, but I think that we can tell the applicant that the expectation is such that it matches the existing structure. And again, my understanding from the city attorney, the city council has final authority. So,
Because, you know,
So-
I replied back to this, and they had the one where it said 10 foot, and I'm like, okay, but I would much rather the ordinance state that it must meet the contour of the actual house than just to put a dead,
Yeah.
you know, 8 foot, 10 foot, 6 foot.
I think we have one of those on, what's that street? Palomino and, you know what I'm talking about? The guy had the RV under it, real tall, 20, 30 foot thing.
I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah. What is that, Palomino and somewhere? There's a real tall.
And see, that's another thing. I absolutely don't want somebody to put a 20-foot carport in front of a one-story house.
No.
But if you got a two-story house and they're putting that carport on the side and it blends into the two-story house and it looks nice, then I don't
That
have
would
a
be
problem
okay.
with that. And that's kind of the way I envisioned it being written, was like that. It has to match the
Exterior of the
color, shape, and contour of the house.
So I just have a question for Bryn. Can we require elevation as a condition of submittal, some sort of rendering or?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think that would give the council in the future some comfort. Hey, it's not going to be it's not going to be green polka dot or whatever we talked about earlier,
It might be
Yeah.
fun, but we really don't.
That's right.
Cindy, do you have a question?
I was just wondering about, carports that have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Are we going to grandfather those in, or
Yeah,
do they have
should
to
be.
modify?
If it's already there, we shouldn't be able to mess with it. That's not
They'd
fair.
be grandfathered in. They'd be non-conforming structures.
Go ahead, Mary.
Not to be difficult, but I know there's a list of conditions that should be met or considered when someone comes in to ask for a specific use permit about anything. And they can be somewhat vague, and sometimes I've seen that things might have been approved because they do follow this rather general list, but really, the decision makers sometimes feel like they are required to approve it because it meets these general requirements. I've seen that happen. So I would really like for us to pin it down with the roofing materials and the color scheme and everything related to residential, and so there wouldn't be any question about. Because they could come and say, well, look, it's not going to cause a traffic problem. It's this, it's that, it's the health, safety, and welfare, So I'd like to have it spelled out if we could.
We should
That wouldn't be hard to do.
Yeah,
Would
we
it?
should be able, when we make the motion, we just state that just state that we want it to match the contour and
Right.
style of the.
Now, I'll be honest, the more specific that you are, the better it is for us to enforce. Because remember, this is a design that essentially provides for criminal penalties, and issuing a citation for not matching the general design is somewhat speculative.
And since this is a low, this
Volume.
doesn't happen very often. You don't get very many requests. In this particular case, I think maybe to table it so that our attorney can put the exact right language in there. I don't think it would hurt to table it under those conditions. I mean, since we probably don't have a long line of people asking for them, or do we?
No, we don't. But I think what Bryn is asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we need those today so that he is able to write those in for if y'all decided to table it, we would be able to have as specific as possible y'all's regulations on there.
So, is everybody else? Is that okay?
Saying if we table it, you'd get the second part done before you brought it back? Or?
No, I think it's all dependent on what y'all want. If this is the only portion that y'all currently want to change in order to approve this portion, then y'all can go ahead and state those regulations currently.
Yeah, but we need to make sure that we state them the right way so that when it goes into design, that they have.
We can state it, and Bryn can put his legal ease on it to make it.
Right. So I certainly don't mind as long as we're somewhat specific about it. Alternatively, we can provide you with some example carport ordinances from other cities for inspirational purposes to see how to design these things, because candidly, I know nothing about carports. It's so...
A lot of people want them. We know that.
Mayor and
Especially
council,
after this summer.
it's pretty simple. And Councilmember Copeland, I don't think we need a material list. I think outlining some material list is unnecessary. I think that you can note that it meets the existing composition of materials of the existing structure, and that gets So, I don't want to get into, well, that's not a composition shingle or this is some new product. That's immaterial. If it looks and it is in keeping, that's the goal. And I'll mention, too, this idea came out actually of a garage gab we held in it's on Trinity Trail, I think, and a homeowner said, hey, I can't park my truck. It's too big, but I can't build a carport. I said, well, so that's how it came. It came out of a garage gab.
So if we make a motion on this to go ahead with it, we just need to say with whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they can demonstrate that they match the existing materials of the existing structure, that's what we want to get. We want to match.
Well, I do have a question.
Match the architecture and style.
Bryn, do you have something you want to enter?
Sure. No, I think, I'll generally defer to Gabe, obviously. We just received word that Chief Spears, who I suppose is watching at home and enjoying this discussion immensely, he's indicated that Larry is working on those technical standards, and his recommendation would be to wait till the next meeting.
To table it.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, whatever you all think.
Best, so that way we get the wording right.
Well, if you want that, then let's table it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And the only other question I have is, in a neighborhood, especially in the old part of Saginaw, both on north and south of West McElroy, there's a lot of existing carports there already.
Mm-hmm.
And, do y'all have a problem with those carports matching the existing carports?
Those
that
are
already
grandfathered
there?
in. Well, he already said.
No. I'm saying if somebody wants to put a carport in, do you have a problem with them trying to match the carports that are already there?
No, because it matches most of those houses. Doesn't it kind of match? I mean.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. I think that
that's a loose interpretation.
I would think that whoever gives the permit or gives the okay would go check it out and make sure that it. Yeah. I'm sure that.
All right, so I think I've heard that we want to table this.
Yes.
A little more info, so.
Yeah. We got to get the wording
Thank
right.
you, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're still in a public hearing. Anybody in the audience wishes to speak on this subject, please approach the microphone at this time. If not, at 8:27, I take us out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we table this till the next hearing so that they get the wording right for the SUP and the consideration.
Okay. All second.
No,
Ladies and gentlemen, please cast your votes.
I raised my hand.
Sounds better, doesn't it?
Cindy left.
Yeah. Do we need to wait on Cindy? Can we, what should we do? Legally, what should we wait on Cindy to come back before we finish the voting, or?
Did we run down there and push her button?
No, we can't push her button.
There would be an abstention, or you can wait.
I think I know how the vote's going to go, so I don't think we need to wait on her.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Okay.
There's 6
Yeah.
of us, 2, 4, 6 of us.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Susie. Appreciate that. So that's 9. 10.
Now it's Russell's turn.
Consideration action regarding police canine program. For that, Chief of Police, Russell Ragsdale. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So what we're here for today is give you an update on kind of the canine program, where we've gotten to date with expenses and seek final direction on how the council wants our program to proceed. So here in the audience, I actually have with me the canine handler and the canine coordinator that were selected by our board. So you two gentlemen can stand up real quick. This is Corporal Tony Manning and Sergeant Cody Pruitt. So Tony Manning was unanimously selected by our board as the canine handler. Y'all go and have a seat if you want.
Now, I'm sorry, who's the handler?
Handler is on this side. 2 straps on the sleeve.
Sunglasses.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so to date, we've spent about $10,000 on ordering equipment, preparing for vehicle outfitting and canine unit, or the canine itself. So we've chosen a vendor. The vendor is actually out of California. We'll send our handler and another handler from another agency with some experience to go with us to look at animals. We're doing that in the middle of September and look to start the program or have him in the handler program by October. So the handler that we've chosen, the company that we've chosen is Top Dog Police Canine. It's ran by a retired law enforcement professional, 30 years of service. Has a number of handlers and trainers that are all past law enforcement, many years worth of experience. One of the things that attracted us to his company is the fact that he's got 12 or more dogs here in our immediate area. So we don't have to go back to California for update training. He's actually here once a quarter. And what he does during that quarter is he works with the dogs, works with the handlers, identifies any vices that might be going on early in your program to correct those. And so he's here locally once a quarter with us, so that reduces a great deal of our cost with updated training and certifications and all. So,
the dog's a California dog? Got converted?
So the dog is actually a European dog. So he'll have just a little bit of California in him before he gets to Texas, but he's eager to be here. He hears Texas is a good place to be. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have to get him trained pretty quick to get that California out of it.
It's hot here, and he's probably not used to it.
And so, with that, I'm open to questions or comments, try to answer whatever you might have. There's been a number of emails going back and forth since the inception of the Canine program come to light, so I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Council questions for Chief?
Gee, I'd like to hear from the handler kind of what made him pick this, or why he wants to do it.
Because he
Mr.
doesn't
Manning?
have a cat.
If you'd like to step up to the podium, please.
It's because he doesn't have a cat.
Now, I will say that he is here voluntarily. He wasn't planning on speaking to anybody, so kind of caught him off guard. So
We'll be gentle.
Tony Manning. I'm with Saginaw Police Department. That was my introduction. You want to throw somebody into the fire. Public speaking is a great way to do it. It's just obviously I'm a police officer here. It's a passion of mine. It's something. The Canine program is something I think that this city, its citizens, and the police department would all benefit from. We see things that take place out on the street in the neighborhoods, and I think this is something that would definitely benefit the city and benefit the citizens of this city 100%. You had a specific question, though. Did I answer that one?
No, it's good. I was just wondering kind of what made you want to do this, because it's a pretty big responsibility.
It is a big responsibility. A lot of things that I talk about in most of the boards that I'm involved with is basically trying to think of the word now. You guys have got me right on the spot.
You're fine. You're doing fine. You're doing fine, buddy.
But just being better, not being satisfied with where you currently are, so to speak. Try to make yourself better. Try to do more things for the city. Try to take on a little more responsibility, and try to help out the citizens and the department however I can.
Good.
Thank you, Corporal. Appreciate that.
Do you think?
Don't worry
Do you think you can compete with Sheldon?
The fire dog? Oh, that's a pretty good dog. We'll see. We'll see them.
And what does your dog feel about feral cats?
No comment on cats.
Good man. So you're learning.
Yes,
you
sir.
got it.
Thank you,
Corporal.
I would like to add, though, if we could train a tactical cat, that would be probably pretty.
I got some you can put in training. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Any other questions for the Chief?
No. I think we're good.
Thank you for the update, Chief. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Great work. Keep up the good work. All right.
This is a consideration.
Yeah. Are we taking action?
Yeah, I mean, it is
Right.
budgeted in this fiscal year, so we want action from the council so that the chief can proceed.
Then I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the action for the Canine program.
There you go. Mr. Tucker. Ladies and gentlemen, please cast your vote. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. All right, moving forward. Item number 11, fiscal year 2022-23 budget workshop. For that, Finance Director Kim Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is another next budget workshop. I think we're trying to tie up some loose ends and answer questions that y'all have had. There's been a flurry of emails back and forth, so I think that answered some of the questions. I'm going to start with just some tables that we've updated. The last time you saw this table, we were comparing current year rates, and since then, everyone like us has had to comply with truth and taxation laws, so we now know their proposed rates. This is the same list of cities that you saw. I want to point out that out of all of these cities here, the total tax rate for all of the proposals of these cities, Saginaw is the third lowest. But if you look at the breakdown, the M&O and INS, remember M&O is the portion of the tax levy that goes to fund general fund, and INS is the portion that goes to fund debt, that we are the second highest. And that is just reflects the fact that, you know, we've been issuing debt. We had the 2021 bond election, and the voters approved for projects, and so we're issuing debt. And when you issue debt, you're borrowing money and you're paying back principal and interest, and so that is a function of the increase in the INS portion of the tax rate. So that's just an update for that one. So at the last workshop, y'all gave direction to increase rental registration fees. And so this is just showing the changes to the proposed budget that we've made so far. The increase in the rental registration fee, that was up to $125. There was 100 proposed. So the additional revenue generated from that will be the $50,750. Y'all asked us to increase garage sale permits. Proposal was $7. To increase that to $10 will generate about $1,800. Switchyard fees, Keith spent a lot of time working on what is the appropriate level. We're conservatively estimating $15,000 by starting to charge a rental fee. We're doing, and again, we're saying conservatively because the current trucks aren't used to paying a fee, so we know we're going to probably lose some of the activity there. So that's our best estimate for the first year. And then there was an email from Chief Spears regarding the emergency manager's pay adjustment. And so the cost of that is about $16,000, half of which we will receive from Lake Worth. So with these changes,
I have a question about the switch yard fees.
Sure.
Does that include the food trucks that park all over the city as well? Because I see them at the rec center and...
I know the food truck parks that park throughout the city have to have a permit, but I don't think they would pay a rental fee unless they were at the switchyard park.
Yeah, that's correct. The fee would just be for the rental of the utilities at the switchyard. Those other food trucks pay the application fee, or the permit fee, which I believe is $150 a year.
And they pay the same fees for the ones at the rec center? If I've seen them at the rec center, they also
so all food trucks in the city have to have a registration, and then the switchyard, if they're using the utility hookups, they'd pay a day rate.
Okay.
So the one at the rec center doesn't use our hookup; it just sits there.
Oh, he has a generator.
So if they don't use the hookup and they're at the switchyard, they still pay their rental fee?
Yes, it's a rental fee proposed per day. And then there's also a discounted rate if you want to do it for a whole week or a whole month to encourage participation. So the bottom line is revenues increase about $75,000, expenditures increase by $16,320. That gives you a positive operating imbalance of almost $60,000, $59,390. So you've got some options on how you want to handle that proposed positive operating imbalance. If you want to reduce the proposed tax rate, you could reduce it by 0.002 cents. That would be a savings to the average homeowner of about $5.14 a year. We've also talked about, when we were talking about the pavement management program, possibly increasing funding for streets and road maintenance. You could add that amount of money to the supplies budget in the general fund in Public Works. And then we've also got this list, which you've seen before, which were the unfunded requests. A lot of these are more than what your savings is. About what your positive imbalance is. You're not going to really have enough in that operating imbalance to fund most of the positions, unless you wanted to entertain funding one of the part-time positions. There were some ongoing expenses in communications that are non-personnel related that you might want to consider. So don't know what your thoughts are on that, but between now and when we adopt the proposed budget, you may want to consider how you want to handle. You can also, and there's nothing to say that you have to budget that on the expense side. You can approve a positive operating imbalance, which is to say we would be collecting more revenues than we would have expenses on the operating side.
I thought the animal shelter shed was in our budget for next year.
No, ma'am. No, it's always been on the unfunded list.
Okay, and that goes along with the rest of the TNR stuff.
Yes, ma'am. None of that is included in the proposed budget. And when we were talking about this, I think Councilmember Bighorse, you brought up a couple years ago, and I know Lewis McLean was here, so I wanted to take a look to see where we are on that plan, and he talked about staff per 1,000 population, and we looked at some different metrics. So I went ahead and graphed just the last 15 years, and one of the metrics that he spoke about using was a staff per 1,000 population, and I did the last 15 years, and I was surprised by this, but in 2009 we had 5.79 positions per 1,000, and in 2023 the proposed budget we will have 5.79 positions. So in 15 years that ratio has stayed the same.
So our population's gone up a bit.
Our population's gone up, and we've staffed for that. We've stayed equal.
So we've been able to, even though our populations went up, we've been able to maintain our staffing by efficiencies within the departments, I guess.
Well, we haven't maintained the same number of staff, but we've maintained that ratio.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And
So
what
the
is
population's gone up by about 26%.
Cindy, you have a question?
I was going to, what is the ideal ratio?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Does that also include the positions that are open that are not currently staffed?
Yes, that's total positions, not total
Not total
employees.
employees, okay.
Yes, ma'am, and it's just general fund. We have 20 positions that are funded with enterprise fund, water, wastewater, that aren't included in these numbers. Okay, and then the next metric that I wanted to graph was spending per capita, and this is adjusted for inflation. So 15 years ago, we spent about $620, and with this 2023 proposed budget, $670. So that's an 8% increase over 15 years. I don't think that's unreasonable. Especially when you consider over the last 15 years there were services and enhancements added. So we're not only adjusting for inflation, you need to keep that in mind as well. So I think these are numbers that show that we've been fiscally responsible and have not grown the budget any more than the city has grown. So this next slide was generated by the police department, and I was asked to put this on the presentation tonight. This compares the starting salary of the different ranks within the police department, comparing, I think, 10 cities, and this is the current salary plan, not the proposed in the budget, where we were proposing a 5% increase, adjusting the pay plan by 2%, and then the rest of the 3% is just a step increase within the pay plan. So in every rank, Saginaw is lowest in these comparison cities. And then I think Councilmember Bighorse requested that we look at some additional statistics for those same cities, And this is what we've come up with. These same cities, I'm looking at the cities that have about a 25,000 population, so Saginaw, Corinth, Colleyville, Watauga, Benbrook. And of those cities, our tax rate, we are the second lowest. The operating budget, second lowest. And number of city employees total, second lowest. Now, of all of those, Colleyville is the lowest as far as tax rate goes. The operating budget is Watauga. They're the very lowest. And Benbrook has fewer employees than we do. And then I know Gabe has been good about keeping you apprised of what other cities are doing as far as proposed salary increases. This is comparing those 10 cities and what their proposals are for salary adjustments, to give you an idea.
But the one that's close to us is doing the 3%.
And this slide is just talking about where we go from here. We've got our scheduled and advertised public hearings on a special meeting Monday, the 22nd. This is this coming up Monday. We'll have the public hearing on the tax rate, public hearing on the proposed budget, and then we plan to then adopt the budget. We'll table that, or you'll take action to then approve the budget and the tax rate on September 6th, the first meeting in September. That's a regular council meeting on a Tuesday night.
So I think the plan may be for next week, the 22nd. We may hold the meeting. We have to hold the meeting because we have to advertise it. We may not take action. I don't believe we're going to have a full house that day. I think Councilmember Falegi is going to be out of town. I don't want to vote on the taxes without the whole council here, if that's okay with y'all. Because I think, for timing-wise, we can stretch it out.
Right. I think legally you have to take action, but your action, and Bryn, correct me if I'm wrong, but your action can be to table it and consider it at the September 6th meeting. And we'll have the wording for you like we have in the past.
So since we're not bound by the de minimis rate, we can stretch out
Correct.
a bit more.
Correct. We are under the voter approved rate, so we don't have the August 22nd deadline.
So if council is okay with that, that would be the plan for next week, if y'all are okay with that? Everybody okay with that?
I do have a question, though.
Sure.
As of today, with the proposed tax rate that we have, how much do we expect, just for the city of Saginaw, our taxes to go up each month?
Well, we've calculated for an entire year.
So we divide
$148.09 for an average home for the year.
It only goes up with the tax rate that's proposed right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Goes up $148?
$148.09 for an averaged value home.
So we're looking at a
in
little over
1 year.
$12 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A quarter a month, something like that.
Okay, so at $12.25 a month, are we still looking at 18% of the Saginaw having 18% of the total tax bill?
Roughly, the school district does 60%, the city does 20%, and the county, a hospital district, and college district are about make up 20%. Those are just rough.
So we're about 20% then?
It could be lower than that. I rounded up.
It's close.
18 to 20%, I guess.
Oops. So what would our total...
Right, and Gabe just mentioned to me, and we talked about this before, this is the non-seniors. The seniors are going to see a decrease of $125.86. So not only are they not going to see the $148 increase, they're going to see a decrease.
Right, but we're still, I'm still trying to figure out, so we would have to multiply that 12 by 5. So we're looking at about a $60 a month tax increase for next year for our citizens.
$12 a month.
No, total tax bill, not Saginaw.
Oh,
Our total tax bill, we're looking at.
I haven't kept up with what the other districts
Do
are
we know
proposing.
what the school's doing? Do we know what their tax rate is?
I mean, if we're looking, that this is about 20%.
But we don't know. If the school-
Oh, they may not go up by the same amount. They could go up by a lot more. They could be reducing. I really don't know what the county and the school district are doing.
Well, I mean, we kind of have to have an idea because, if we look at what inflation has done, gas prices jumped up, 25, 30 cents overnight. $60 a month is a lot of burden to put on our citizens.
It is, but all we can do is what we have control over.
Well, and, I just want to make sure that we have done, and not just the city, but the council has done everything they can to make sure that we cut what we can out of the budget to relieve that burden on a lot of our citizens. I mean, I don't want to, operate a city at the demise of our citizens.
Well, the reason that's why we increased the exemption for seniors.
I know, but there's more than seniors that are also hurt financially.
And we're also paying $20 million for a new library and a new senior center.
Yeah.
And we have to pay for that. That has to come from somewhere.
Yep.
When the citizens approve that bond, we said taxes will go up. We're not sure how much, about this much because that costs. When we sold $20 million worth of bonds this year, you've got to pay for that. That's the big increase.
It's a good point, and I want to remind the council from the last presentation, but the operating portion of our tax rate is decreasing. The increase this year is due to voter-approved bonds. And also be reminded that as we build, new facilities, a bigger library and senior center, that has an operating impact in the future.
Ellen's going to want people to staff that new library. Fairly enough, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
And just to build on that, from Valerie on down, we were here when we voted for the items to be put on the bond election, and the two council members that are replaced, we voted unanimously to put those items on that bond election, and we knew at that time that it would cause the tax rate to go up. And the voters knew when they voted for that the tax rate would go up. So
But we weren't expecting the appraisals to go up as high as they did.
Well, I was.
And it hurts. I mean, it hurts a lot of
I
our
know,
people.
but we are, a city also suffers from inflation. So our costs are going up.
Yeah, but we're looking at giving them a 5% raise. And I know a lot of the people out there
and that's one
don't
of the
get
reasons
a
our
lot of the
costs are
people that that are paying the taxes aren't getting 5% raises.
I'll speak to that, and for those listening at home. So the Social Security, those on fixed incomes on Social Security in 2022 are getting a 5.9% increase. Waiting to hear what the 2023 increase will be. In light of recent inflation, it'll be substantial. DFW inflation for the past 12 months is between 8 to 9%.
Yeah,
so
but that Social Security, that's going to all be taken by Medicare premiums.
If we don't recognize that our employees are, as we all are, we're all in this together, experiencing the effects of inflation, we're giving them a pay cut. And that's why you see all these cities, similar size in our area, they're giving raises that are substantial. One of the city closest to our size, although they're built out, Watauga, 3% raise, but their starting salaries are higher and exceptionally higher in the police department. So want to commend our staff, especially our police department, down 9 patrol officers, which presents difficulty. We're doing the best we can, and I think that our recommendation to you with the cost of living adjustment of 5% is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I don't want to lose any more police officers. We can't afford to lose more police officers. So I want to do everything we can to keep these folks.
Oh, I agree.
And a raise will go a long way toward that. We can talk about other things, but we put our money where our mouth is for our employees, especially. Oh, yes, Mary, I'm sorry.
I have some interesting data, if I can find it. In 2018, our tax rate was 49.5. 2019 it was 47. 2020 it was 46. In 2014, 2015, and 2017 it was actually 51 cents, which is what we're proposing. In 2016 it was 54 cents. And I remember hearing from one of our prior councilmen that had been on council for almost 30 years. In the early 90s, it was actually in like 68 cents. Yes, property values were lower, but so were salaries. So we've done an excellent job, and when we can go lower, we go lower. I've seen it. You know, we've reduced it. When we can't, we can't. So I think we've shown, like Kim pointed out, we've been exceptionally good stewards of the revenue that comes into our city.
But at the same time, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, Patrick Farr challenged the city to drop it, and we were able to drop the tax rate from what the proposed rate was. And I'd like to go through that exercise.
So Kim can explain that.
I went back and looked at that. So we actually didn't drop from the proposed rate. There were positions that the council wanted to add. I went back and looked at it. There was only one line item that really was reduced, and that was fuel. And that was fine for a few years, but now that fuel costs are going up, we're having to increase that. It was just a temporary drop in fuel prices. And then the other way that we balanced the budget, which I don't recommend, I spoke out against it then and I'll speak out against it anytime, is to partially fund a position, right? So I think we partially funded emergency management coordinator for half a year, a police officer for half a year, and I think a firefighter for 3/4 of a year. And what you're doing is just kicking the can down the road. I mean, if you're going to add a position, you need to fully fund the position. If you don't do it that year, you're going to have to find the funding for it next year.
Yeah, to me, that's just playing games. It's a shell game.
And it's not a best practice in the government finance. It just isn't.
One thing I'll say, too, you've seen the list of the positions requested but not funded. The good news for us is that as the city grows and we experience more commercial development, our sales tax is growing. So there's a direct correlation, especially with the police department, with the crime control and prevention district. So as we grow in our commercial base and sales tax, we'll be able to fund more positions through that. So
that, and next year we'll have more. The Belt Mill and the Square will have been developed more, and only 50% of that incremental value goes to the TERS. The other 50% comes to the general fund. So we will have some growth there, and it really is something you need to consider, because we can't open a new library and senior center and not expect to have more operating costs. You're going to need more people to fund that. So you are going to have to look at increases at some point.
Well, I know one of the questions that I asked was, charging library fees. And I've talked to Ellen about this before. With the library cards, I understand that, but I know Tarrant County College charges for ESL classes and a lot of the classes that we offer at the library. Why aren't we charging non-citizens for that? We got to do something to offset our costs.
I understand your concern in being cost conscious.
It doesn't have to be exorbitant.
Sure. The reality is we're talking in the hundreds of dollars if we were to charge a fee. This is a public good, public education. Those are also programs that are funded by volunteers. So to use volunteers to charge a fee would not be practical. Does any library you know of charge for a citizenship class or a GED class? I mean, this is just not.
I heard that TCC and Fort Worth both charge for them. I've not followed up. I know they did a few years ago.
TCC is not a library, it's a school. That's different. Fort Worth library charges? I haven't heard that, but I haven't had to use it.
So even if they did, council member, we're not going to make any substantial changes in the budget. You're talking a few $100s, probably on par with the garage sale permit. It's not a structural difference.
We got to start bringing more revenue in. We got to take the the burden off of our citizens. We got to quit building multifamily. We got to start building commercial stuff.
And the best way we can do that, and the council has demonstrated that, is to bring sales tax producing businesses like restaurants and those sorts of things. And the council has incentivized that to happen. So thankfully, with our growth and our mixed use developments, it's coming.
Yeah, I fully expect in the next few years we will be able to lower taxes just because of the growth we're going to experience. And going into this talk about the bonds, that's the reason for all this. We sold bonds this year just for Library and Senior Center. We will in the future sell for roads, for Knowles. But remember that we're going to get money from the county for Knowles. So that bond that we put out there for Knowles will be less. The citizens will end up paying, maybe hopefully half of what we advertise just because we're going to get money from the county. So I fully anticipate we will not use all the tax increase that we were authorized by the citizens. We will use much, much less. I know on the Bailey Boswell project we used a little over half of what we were authorized, and I fully anticipate we'll work toward that with this new bond proposal as well. So just keep that in mind. I mean, this I'm hopeful this is the worst year we'll do. We knew it was going to hit. $20 million is a lot of bonds to sell. That has an impact, and I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge on some folks. Most folks will not notice. Fortunately, our seniors will not get the impact because we raised the exemption on them, so we took the burden off them there. And also, the seniors will get a brand new, standalone, multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art senior center. That's what this is for. That's what we're doing.
It was a standalone. I thought it was with those.
Well, however you want to describe it, but you know what I mean. Sorry.
I know what you mean, but it's not a standalone. You got to make sure.
Well,
I got you.
It's beautiful to have their own facility.
It does.
How's that?
There you go.
Fantastic. But that comes at a cost. That costs money. We know what construction costs are. Things like that cost a lot of money. Somebody's got to pay for that. Citizens have to bear a little bit of that. They have to. I mean, we're in the business of providing services for folks. This is what we're trying to do with a library, with a fire station, all that good stuff. Unfortunately, that stuff's expensive. It's not cheaper. We're doing the best we can to control the costs and everything else, but it costs a lot of money to build those facilities. And we're in a building spurt right now in the city, and that's part of what we're seeing. Just my 2 cents.
I would like to say I really appreciate Cindy pulling that Excel sheet together about some of the stuff it caused me to look at it. It's the data that you asked for, I looked at it. It was very good. I asked questions back over that, so it was a very good exercise, and I appreciate you, Cindy.
Well, I think I think we need to, live up to our responsibilities and question everything that comes before us.
Yeah.
If we can save $100,000 here or there, it adds up.
Yeah. I think sometimes when we're looking at these large numbers, we tend to forget that, people's individual income is a small smidgen of that. We need to keep that in thing. I will say that I do think the council stepped up and took care of the people on fixed incomes, the elderly people on Social Security. I think that's a big help to the people that's actually on fixed income.
And I will gladly admit, or not gladly, I will readily admit that I'm a big picture guy, and so I appreciate folks really digging into the details, because I do that some, but I don't do it enough. I focus on the big dollars. I do. That's just sort of how I'm wired. So that's good. We all have blind spots, and I appreciate other that. I don't want to forget. I do have a request to speak. Mr. Pete, you want to speak? I don't want to forget you, sir.
I'm glad y'all are doing this. I sent an email to y'all about no new tax rate. Okay, Tarrant County Appraisal District, 2 of their employees got suspended without pay for malfeasance. They were using stationery and stuff like that. They ran up some charges against Chandler Crouch. But anyway, they have a software that is basically, homemade, patched. So they're kind of like under scrutiny for the appraisal district. And Eagle Mountain Saginaw, their bond program failed miserably, 70-30. Okay, so I think y'all can go with no new tax rate. I sent y'all a article from Texas Score Guard that other counties, other cities are doing the same thing. So work toward it. And beans, bullets, and bandages. That's where you ought to build your budget on. Beans, bullets, and bandages. Bullets for police officers, and beans for everybody to eat, and bandages to fix everybody's boo-boos. So, I know that's what y'all elected to do. But new tax rate should be a goal. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
$1 per ship.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Kim? And thank you, Kim.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all's hard work. Oh, you got more to go?
So I was just going to say,
Sorry.
so we'll have our public hearing August 22nd. Is there a direction on the 59,000 operating imbalance? I mean, do you want
Just
to?
cut it off the tax rate, which is point, whatever you said. What'd you say?
It's 0.001 or 002 cents.
But we could just let it ride till next year. And just be
You could adopt the budget with a positive operating imbalance. Yes, sir. You could, as I mentioned, there's the list of unfunded. We talked about the concern that we didn't have enough money for our pavement management program. You could put it in supplies, in public works supplies for streets and sidewalks.
We could build that new shed that the animal services wants, right?
$59,000. I mean, depending on what their revised estimate is. Sure. And that's a one-time, which you can use this for one time, and then you'll have that capacity next year.
What's the will of the council? What would y'all like to do? You'll have them been quiet all night, so don't be quiet. Don't start now. I know it's late.
I can see good points for both, but if we're going to try to identify a particular area where we want to use this, is it $59,000?
Yes, ma'am, $59,390.
Then could we make that suggestion at the next meeting? Or
Yes, there's no pressure
we can all
tonight.
look.
No, I just
We can all
wanted to
look
get the
at-
general direction, but we
Look at
can.
the unfunded list and come back with something that adds up to around, no more than 59,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Next, on the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whatever y'all want to do.
I agree with that.
Okay. All right, everybody will take a look and give feedback to Kim. All right, so that's it. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Jennifer. So that is item number 11. Forward to item number 12, we're going to push that off to another time. We're going to get that from Pedro at a later session. So we do have an executive session, though. At 9:07, we're in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071. Consultation with attorney and
I have to recuse, don't I?
551.087
I can go
economic
home.
development.
Bye. This is my fault. No.
You're done, aren't you?
I'm done.
Go home.
She should have to stay here so
No.
she can move to dismiss.
I bet y'all can do that without me.
boys behind me eat a dog, never see it. Last time he's like, every officer eats a dog.
It's a different kind of element.
So that way, one guy said, "You already done it." I had to recuse myself on this. I said, "Oh, crap." I thought, that's quick.
She didn't think about it until she was leaving, and then of course she had to fill out papers, so that's why I was too late. They already started. Is that really feeling bad, or is it just?
His feet are broke this morning.
So let me ask this. We request in Bear County, we carry a tactical cat, we shoot the bad guys when they're running off. Depends on how much it costs. What would you think if you saw a flying cat come at you with both bullets? I surrender, I surrender. Oh my gosh. Put one in every car. Everybody checks out the tactical cat. The heck with the photo wrap, we'll use the tactical cat. This will get you out of the confined space pretty quick. About 6 of them up in there, you'll come out. So here's the question we never asked. So, cats are territorial. They don't move into new areas on their own, by their own testimony. So if you euthanize all the cats in an area, old established cats don't move into that area. New abandoned cats move into that area. So when you euthanize all the cats in all the areas, the only thing you're worried about is new cats. And it's when you leave new cats under control that you have that problem. Just what I took out of their presentations.
You have to maintain it no matter what.
We had a lady that, we lived here, and then there's a corner house, and she lived here. She passed away a year ago. Well, her house, she all the cats, there's a hole in the roof of her storage shed in the back, and the cats are in and out. Well, because she fed them. So we had cats, we couldn't get rid of them. And, so she passed away, and I said, oh, they're big gone. Oh no, our son comes, he doesn't live in the house, he comes and feeds it for the cats. It's like, they're just, they get on their own patio furniture, you have to cover that stuff up. They're, you can see them walking across the yard, they dig, it's just nasty.
Create a feeding station, yeah, I don't know if you got the program, but just one country way of thinking. You create a feeding station where somebody's feeding these cats. Slowly they die off because you fixed them all, they can't procreate, right? This, someone just keeps feeding, but they're not keeping up with how many cats are out there. So you have leftover food, so now you're drawing in the raccoons, the coyotes, and which are your 5 top rabies carriers. Now you're drawing them into your communities. It's like,
Well, and that's the,
I can sure see where this goes. That's backwards to where it is.
according to the studies, again, I know I'm going to miss about this. But according to the studies, so if you euthanize them, the same thing happens. That void is filled by wild animals.
Right, and I can see what that is, but it's not the human-generated food. Where if you're out there feeding them, you're creating dependency that when they're gone, other animals will start eating.
Well, I can attest to that at my house, because we were trying to keep some cats around the place, just for that rodent control. And we stuck some food out there, well, I ended up on a game camper. I had 2 cats that I'd never seen before, 3 possums, a raccoon, and a dog that was trying to get up on the cell. So some stuff finds is going to find, but the thing about trapping them on a TNR deal, it's contradicting to me, is you can't feed them and expect to trap them. You got to trap them because they're hungry.
you kick them around the legs, they can't run anymore. You can shoot them around the arms and tie them up. We got two of them that we never had to pay for.
Watching the game would show the one that's in Maine. And watching the reruns the other day. There they have rabies as porcupines. And so a bobcat got a porcupine, so they trapped it. Went to the vet. The
step where we won't see a decrease the next year. We wouldn't do anything like that, but half my department was behind the new guy as far as pay goes, we're so impressed.
That's just it, you gotta get existing people up far enough to come in behind them. I mean, that's what, they made those adjustments, we made last year. You gotta be willing to do that periodically. Continue to make room for people, plug into that little gap, make that incentive for them.
If I were to hire a patrolman in at the 5-year study, he'd make more than young squad. And he's making more than It's our responsibility to make sure the citizens don't have no fear.
I can tell you what's with your record, you only ask for that one, two, it'll be responsible.
I would experience difference in my ability.
We'll give a 5% raise, so that we're not gonna be.
Let me tell you, my vehicle allowance doesn't cover shit for the increase in fuel. It's not the city's fault, I live an hour away, but the increase in fuel is way more than the city's starting for that.
I guess if you hold this amount, decide that, oh, crap, that is come to party or appreciation or.
And we did the joint thing for a number of years, just, there really is a difference in benefits. We all get unit citations, we're giving individuals, so it seems like we're hogging the whole show because we're doing the individual thing.
That was good for, I mean, it was nice to come over here, but you're right, I mean, it's better than separate.
If you do that with all of us, well, then it looks like, well, this department's not doing anything. You know, it kinda, it's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we do firefighters here, we do stuff like that, I mean, we do both work out here.
Well, you know, we used to always have one.
I think most bitches.
Yeah.
We could do things. Some come, some won't. It's like having swim days at the aquatic, some come, some won't. This is how it is. Do as you can.
I was doing an annual fish drive just for the PD. We had give about 40% attendance. So that tells you if you were to join it up with any other city function, you could have even less than that. It didn't cost anything, and I ran it from 2 to 8. So show up anytime, and I'll have fresh food for you. So yeah, we just don't show up.
I think they're getting, Brand's been talking to them, see what they want to put in the agreement or whatever they're gonna do as far as selling it, what he'll do, or whoever's buying it will do.
Hope they don't went in before January, because we won't be in.
That's why it's not in a hurry, but it's no reason to be in a hurry because.
Because our nurse is January for the phone call, they've already told us, you were going to go to January, we were that thing. At the beginning.
You don't need an emergency gender. If y'all have a couple of dark days, that's okay.
You seen them main doors, man? Those dudes are heavy.
If the storm's coming in, it's going to raise it.
Yeah.
Leave them parked outside.
But it is crazy, the difference in the temperature from that day to walking here, because they see some west, it's still the south. I was in Buffalo last week, Friday night,
All right, at 9:34, we're back in session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Charlie. Cindy, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9:34, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.